All right. Welcome. Episode 60. I'm joined in the basement by Major Retired Kevin Shipe.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Great to have an Air Force guy in here, as much as I was talking trash about you about 3 minutes ago.
Yep. And the flag in the background. But
yeah, we were I mean, it's always great to have different branches, and I can't lie. It's a different, aspect of things. But there's a part of me that always dies when I have to take down the Army flag. And we were talking about the logo. It's not my favorite logo. So, but that's okay. It's the Air Force.
It's all part of it.
It's the best we can do for you now. Yeah. But no, welcome. Thank you for coming. You probably traveled the longest to come. How long did it take you to get up here?
Hour and 20 minutes.
Okay, so pretty much a good long trip. Thanks for coming up.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. I'll start off with a quote from Lieutenant General Leo Marquez, Air Force, by the way. I don't ever want to hear the term logistics tale again. If our aircraft, missiles, and weapons are the teeth of the military might, then logistics is the muscle, tendons, and sinews that make the teeth bite down and hold on. Logistics is the jawbone. Hear that? The jawbone. So if you haven't gathered, you're a logistics guy. Towards the end, contract logistics.
I know the Army has like very segmented things. The Air Force does not necessarily. Right. But yeah, contracting is not truly logistics, but it's part of our job.
But good to have you in. Like I said, thanks for coming in. I think we should start off about the phone thing. You started going through. So we always have to. I like having the off the wall conversation, but we asked Kevin to turn off make sure he put his phone on airplane mode because it kind of can mess with the mics a little bit. And he pulled out his phone. You got to pull it out. No protector on the phone. So I think that's crazy. I mean, I would probably break the phone 2 or 3 times a week. And no cover. Do you have a cover on the front though? Too?
I do have a screen cover on the front.
Okay, at least
it's only like 3 years old. And I just paid off the phone, so I've had it for a while. It has been dropped. It's a little scratched here and there, but no major damage.
I think you're like living on the edge with that, with no protector on there. I mean,
it doesn't fit in my pocket with a protector. And then you have to carry it around there. I just throw it in my pocket and it's done. It's out of sight. So
I just like I drop it too much. But whenever I see that, I was like, man, that guy's living on the edge, or gal's living on the edge.
Yeah, I've heard it before from some people very close in my life, and I still don't have a protector.
Yeah, your wife tried to get us to do that, so it's my last ditch effort to do that. She paid me $25 to bring that up.
Wouldn't put it past some people.
Sorry, I tried. We'll try to get him to do it. We'll see if we can get him to buy one on Amazon before he leaves.
No,
but and the screen's broken on the front too. That's where it's a little crazy. Like your screen's broken on the front too.
There's a crack across the protector, but I mean, can you tell? Like, can you see it?
I had to look at it. If I was like closer, I probably could. Let's see.
There, hit it.
There's one. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I think it
works.
I don't know. I tried both times. It doesn't look like it's happening. He's going to stick with his phone.
I literally think
saving his cargo pocket.
Yeah. It's done.
So, I just thought that was a great start with when we were looking at it before. And I was like, because I do think it's crazy. I probably broke. I mean, I've dropped my phone like once a month, and it's not like I just drop it from here. It's like out of the car, like hits concrete. I just feel like I'd be buying a new phone rather than a case.
I don't know. It's with me all the time wherever I'm at. Where I'm tracked
in your cargo.
In my cargo pocket. I'm listening to stuff when I'm mowing grass. It's in my pocket. But yeah,
exciting stuff.
I know. How did we even get on that? That was like right before we started.
Yeah, it was like right. I mean, just dropped out the psycho move on me real quick. Then really, that's always fun to do that. So, what's exciting is another non-Ohio State fan on the show.
Yeah, not an Ohio State fan. So.
You aren't or aren't?
Okay,
I was like, you changing up on me now.
No, not Ohio State fan. Yeah. I mean, I live here only because I ended up here at the end of my military career, but technically I grew up in Florida in the Southeast. So, that's where real football is played in the SEC. And up here, they're only good if they get good people from the South to be on their team. So
that's a bold statement going on. I like that.
Josh is there. I can see him on the corner of my eye.
Josh is getting on very comfortable about that. But like you said, you didn't grow up here from Virginia, or grew up in Virginia until at the 6th grade and then moved to Florida.
Yep.
So talk about growing up. Any brothers, sisters?
I have one brother who is 18 months older than I am. So he was a year ahead of me in school. And then, like I said, through through my Little League career, I was in Virginia, and then we moved to Florida. Moved a couple different places in Florida, but I went through 8th grade through high school all in the same place, same house.
You played in sports?
Not for the school, no. I was, like I say, I always played baseball as a kid. Played basketball with the group of kids that I, hung out with at school, whatever. We played intramural basketball at the school, but went to a very large high school. There was about 3,000 kids in it. So making any of the sports teams, like, you were really, really good then, right? And we had some really good, like my senior year of high school, I think there were three or four different kids that played in the NFL at some point. Maybe not starting, maybe not superstar. One's in the Hall of Fame, but the rest of them,
just one of them, no big deal.
Yeah. But that's the level of people it was, and we were always really, really good. So yeah, I was not that talented.
So what brought you? What had your family move back to Florida?
My grandfather lives around Orlando, my mom's mom. And I don't know, I was 12 at the time, so it was like, hey, let's move to Florida. All right, whatever. So that's the way. And that's first we lived in the Panhandle, then we moved to Gainesville for a year, and then we moved finally to Apopka right outside of Orlando.
So who's your college football team then? If it's not what I say.
I don't really root for one super solid. I more like the competitiveness of it, right? And now it's getting a little weird too with all paying everybody. But definitely Southeast football. Like, in school everybody was Florida State, Miami kind of thing. But any of the SEC, it's always competitive, right? Not 49-0, beating Bowling Green or something. So
Ohio State versus
Ohio U.
Well, it'd be like Michigan beating Ohio State 49-0. I think that's what we've seen lately in the past few years, but
yeah,
it's good stuff. So anybody else in your family military wise? Any history there?
Well, yeah. So my grandfather and my wife's grandfather were both served during World War II. Excuse me. My dad and my father-in-law were both in the Navy for a very short period, a couple years each. So not like career-wise, but definitely around the military. But
did that have any influence on you joining?
Other than not going to the Navy, no.
Good choice. I don't know. Is the Air Force better than the Navy?
I'm not a big swimmer, so being out on a boat in the middle of nowhere surrounded by water is not sounding appealing to me at all.
As long as the boat stays afloat, you're good,
I guess. But you can't trust people either. They do all kinds of crazy stuff, throwing people overboard to see if they can. No.
So what made you go Air Force route?
I guess I just felt that this is going to sound a little weird to you, but I guess I didn't want to be in the military, but I wanted to be in the Air Force because I've told people this for a long time. I did not serve in the military. Like, I didn't get shot at, but I was in the Air Force.
Interesting. I think the Air Force is the military.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm also going to say the only time I ever was in harm's way, I was on an Army FOB in Afghanistan, not on an Air Force base.
The Air Force bases are pretty sweet, though.
Right.
I think it's the best way to join the military and be the safest.
It was, and I always had this thing about planes. I sort of, like the planes. I like the activity better than here's a gun, go shoot or be shot at. That's not in my vocabulary, not my line of thought. So yeah, when I was, got to that point, I went into the Air Force recruiter and said, okay, I want to join. And he's like, you have to take this test first. And I was like, I'll do okay. Just tell me what jobs you have. So
you joined as an aerospace ground equipment mechanic.
Yes.
So what is that?
Well,
exactly?
Technically, no. Technically, I joined with a guaranteed job to an avionics career field. But they when I was in basic training, they called you over to the side and said, hey, you need to go fill out a dream sheet. And I was like, I already have a guaranteed job. They're like, yeah, they ended that because they took it and made it civilian. So
gotcha. Not good.
Right. Like, okay. So then I had to go and I picked, and they or I didn't pick. I filled out a sheet and they said, you're going to be an age mechanic. I was like, okay, don't know what that means, but all right. Basically, it's taking care of all the equipment that's on the ground around the airplane. Okay. So, generators, heaters, maintenance stands, all of that is what that encompasses. So being out on the flight line, taking stuff back and forth to the plane, fixing it when it's broke.
So what was it like? Was that, I mean, were you happy with that what you filled out? Was it what you expected, or a little just kind of going to do what I have to do? And
yeah, just do what I have to do. Like it didn't, I think I got into it because you had to, it was just the timing aspect. And I told him I didn't want to be anything to do with medical. And I did not want to be, at the gate guard at security forces or anything. So yeah, it didn't know a whole lot about it. But it worked out fine. Had a good run with it. So
had the UK for your first assignment?
Yeah. 6 years in the UK. Had a pretty good time there. It was always something different, interesting going on. You never knew if you were in the shop, you were fixing equipment, doing inspections, stuff like that. But if you're out driving the flight line, you would never know what's coming out of the sky. I mean, I've been on the ground. The first MiG that flew from Russia to the United States in 93, 94, I was there when it landed. The F-117, the first time that went overseas, it came to our air show in May, and I was there when it landed. So you never knew. Vice President hit the ground in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., because they were having a problem. It was on the ground, taking them equipment to fix it, and then gone again. So it's always something interesting.
So a lot of travel. I mean, I imagine a lot of time to travel to. 6 years in the UK. Do a lot of travel in Europe? Are you there?
No.
I guess not.
Well, we did some, but as my wife points out, we were broke, right? I mean, I joined as an Airman Basic, so I think my first monthly paycheck was $600. And at the time, the exchange rate was more than 2 to 1. So that means I could save up $5 and get 2 pounds, which would buy you a soda, right? So not a ton of travel. We did some around the UK, went to Wales. I was playing softball. So I went to Germany. I went to the Netherlands playing softball, but it was mostly paid for. So, but nothing. We didn't
to the Air Force stuff, or?
Yeah. It was a base team or a volunteer team. So, and they would pay most of our way. So
you didn't get to take the wife on those trips. I'm sure she was happy about that.
She did not go on any of those trips. I don't know if she would really want to sit out and while we're playing tournament game after. And some of them would be, 3 or 4 games a day, because we was trying to cram in a whole tournament on a 3-day weekend. So
yeah, I grew up with my dad was softball in the military, and I went with him on some of it. But yeah, sleeping in like gymnasiums with, bunch of grown men, and then watched a bunch of grown men wearing like girdles and all this other kind of stuff to keep themselves healthy.
Right. The best one we went on was when I was playing on a fast pitch softball team, and we went to the Netherlands and stayed in their equivalent of the YMCA, and it had like a nice shower and bathroom set up, and we stayed in the gym. But yeah, stayed in tents. So
when did you? I guess we got to go back to your wife. Interesting where you guys met, working at Walt Disney, right? That's the first time
Yeah, we were both working at Walt Disney World, working in a restaurant. They opened up a Mickey Starland to celebrate Mickey's birthday or something. Supposed to be there for a year. It's still there now. It's gone through name changes, but that whole section of the park. And yeah, we worked at a place called Tomorrowland Terrace. And that's where we met.
So do you guys go back for like, you guys ever go back to Disney World?
I'm not a huge Disney fan.
Good. Because I was like, oh, this is going to, oh, dang it. No. Because I think that's one of the craziest places to go to. Like I've actually avoided, I went with my dad and my sister, my mom, my family. I mean, I guess we'll say it. And it was like the big trip to go. I think I was a junior, it was like late. And I was kind of like, we talked about how that happened, how we paid for that, child labor,
picking up cans,
aluminum cans. Yeah.
Yeah.
But try to get through that part of it. But like the one thing I'm proud that's crazy is a lot of people give me crap. So I'm proud that I never took my kids to Disney World.
Oh, my kids went all the time. Like my father-in-law worked there. My brother still works there. So they get in free. So whenever they go, to grandparent land.
I'm down with that, but I'm not down with the paying for like the.
But oh no, I mean, the only time I think we've been back a few times, to be honest, when we were first married, we would go back and went to some of the parties or whatever, some of the events. Been in the park, been with my kids a few times and met friends when we lived there for a year right after I retired. Friends had come down. We went to the park with them, but it was mostly us walking around talking and kids taking rides. Going, hey, we're going here. All right, we'll be on this bench, right? So
it's not. I just think it's like you hear like taking like a 5-year-old, 6-year-old to Disney World and the amount of money it costs. And then like when I talk to my kids now, they're pretty much all grown. And you ask them like you bring up a memory when they were like 6 and they like, I don't remember that. And I'm like, thank God we didn't spend, it's $700 a person for a week ticket.
I'm sure that my kids would say that they really enjoy going. My daughter's a huge Disney person. Okay. So, and my son's into it and his fiance. To be honest, we're going to Disneyland in October to the Oogie Boogie Bash, which is like a special Halloween event that they have. Yeah, it's hilarious, right?
There's such excitement when you said that.
We every year we go on some kind of a trip, and this year we're like, hey, we'll go to California. We're going to San Diego, and then my daughter's like, when are we going to be there? We're like, October, because it's going to be a little cooler, maybe. And she goes, hey, the Halloween party. And so it was like, if you can get tickets, we'll drive up. And she somehow got tickets for one day because they sell out really fast, apparently. So, yeah, we'll go to Disneyland when we're out there for a day, but
no aspirations to go back like your 50-year reunion. I mean, your 50-year anniversary and the wife.
I don't know. It'd be cool to go with her, right?
Yeah, just her,
but not to be like, let's go to Disney for this. I mean, there's a reason to go and be like, okay, we still work here. I still have friends, from back then that I've seen a few times when I've been down there, but it's not like I need to go to Disney and be like, hey, I used to work here. No.
I feel like a lifetime pass was like a lifetime shake or something.
I mean, it was sort of like high school, right? I worked there for 4 years and I went to high school for 4 years, and I don't want to go back to high school for any reason whatsoever. You could pay me enough. That's a lie, because I am money motivated, but I don't need to go back. And
what would be your price to go back to do 4 years of high school?
A couple million.
That much?
Yes. Told you I didn't like it.
Knowing what you know, though, I mean, I think knowing what we know, like high school would be even worse, right?
Yeah, it's probably the same things would trip me up this time as it did last time. Like, I don't like to do homework. Like, I'll take your test and I'll pass it, but then don't downgrade my grade because I didn't do this stupid paper, right? And that would. So yeah, I don't think I would go back for any amount of money though. Couple mil, I can hang out. I mean, 500,000
for 4 years.
For 500,000 a year, basically. Yeah, sure. I could do it.
That's true. That's a lot of money to change the whole. I'll say more like 10K. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, I'm good. No, but that wouldn't be. Well, so I mean, back to high school. Not a big studier. Obviously, you said you didn't like to do the.
Not a big studier. Hence, I didn't go to the Air Force Academy. I drove past it once, but I did not attend. But I always do really well on tests, especially standardized tests. When you have to do this, oh, you're in 10th grade, take this test.
Yeah.
Ace it, not a problem. My senior year of high school, I needed to take a English credit to graduate, but at the law at the time, you had to attend. So I ended up taking like weightlifting, electronics. I took a second year of chemistry because I liked the physics I had the year before. That was going to be the teacher. He handed out a test the first week and said, okay, take this as a pre-test. Whatever you get on it, you won't score lower for the year. So I took it and got a B. I was like, I don't have to do anything in this class now. Got a B for the year. So
we got an A.
I got a B and didn't have to worry about it. Right.
Yeah. So no aspirations with as good as testing to go to college. It was just.
I tried. I tried. Like, I graduated. I went to University of Central Florida for a semester. Well, half a semester before I was like, yeah, I'm done. Just wasn't motivated. But there was all the other living in Florida, the distractions, right? Like we were playing, we formed a softball team at Disney and played in the Disney softball league, and the beach is there and all the people are there, and college, there's a college program, there's a party every Tuesday night toga, and so I totally got out of high school and was like, yeah, I just did not stick with it. So that didn't go well. So then I was like, all right, then it became time to grow up, and I was like, all right, let me go see what the Air Force is about, because I won't have to go to school, which is weird because the first thing they do is put you in school. And so, yeah, I did not go to college. I graduated from college at 30, finished my degree.
So back to your first assignment, did you pick the UK or did they pick it for you?
Damn, my wife's probably going to listen to this eventually. Isn't it? I picked worldwide 88 code. You volunteer, you'll go anywhere, right? That was what I volunteered for. She had a full ride scholarship at the University of Central Florida and was finishing her second year by the time we were going to get married. And we were like, oh, we'll just transfer wherever I'm at. So I'm in Chanute, Illinois, Rantoul, Illinois, get an assignment. You can see him come in at that time. It was just sort of like everybody's getting Europe, everybody's getting East Coast, everybody's getting West Coast, everybody got Asia coming around to Europe. And I got tagged with Mildenhall. I was like, great. So I called her. I was like, hey, I got my assignment. It's on the East Coast. She's like, where? And I was like, Mildenhall. She's like, what? I was like, yeah, it's the East Coast of England.
Didn't find that funny, huh?
No, not that funny. So she walked away from her full ride scholarship. She finished in May. I came back in June, got married, and then she went back to the UK with me. So
I think that's another great example. We have people in here talk about the sacrifices. Everyone always wants to talk about the sacrifices the service members make. It is always so humbling to hear the sacrifices and the things that the spouses put on the back burner to support what we're doing. So it's I think what makes our military pretty powerful is knowing that we have spouses that'll up and move and change their whole life and their projection of life to go.
And it's everybody, right? In family. Yeah. So the kids too, they don't want to move.
Yeah.
But they do.
Yeah, it's a rough thing because if you look about that was always my I grew up and I moved. I mean, we stabilized in a pretty good spot, but because there's always a potential that we were moving, I guess, right? Yeah. And that's one thing I was very reluctant about with my kids. I didn't want, you always hear those stories. You wanted to be like the kid who knew somebody since they were 1 year, since 2 or 3 years old, and they grow up and they're best friends forever. And so it's always a weird thing to be able to move. It does change, but how I have it now with moving, we moved up here 10 years ago, right? Kids were in high school. One was in high school and then just, pretty close behind it. But it's almost like I think it makes them a little bit more resilient and possibility of change as it moves along. You're just, you're just open to something else. You're not you don't only know one way, you know what I mean? So I have it more now as it's a positive more than it was a negative in the past. 'Cause in the past, when I was younger, I used to think it was just the most horrible thing. Yeah. But now I'm
I see it the same way. We always agreed, my wife and I, we were going to try to have our kids start and finish at the same high school, wherever that was, right? So we got to the booming metropolis of West Milton, Ohio. Go Bulldogs. And my son started his freshman year there and graduated. But there were people at his senior awards banquet. Excuse me. I don't know what I swallowed right before we came on air, but that they were sitting at the table and it was mom went to school here and grandpa went to school here and great grandpa went to and they graduated with 140 kids. Not a big school, not a big town, 3,000 people. I don't know, 5,000 something, right? Two or three red lights, not huge. But we were there and there were people who were like, yeah, I've been to Indiana and Kentucky.
Yeah.
And by that point, my kids had been to almost every state. Yeah. So it is now, they don't have a problem being like, oh, let's hop on a plane and go to California. It's not a big deal. It's okay, we're going to go there and see things. Not, oh my gosh, we're going to go on a plane and fly for X hours to the other side of the world. And you're like, no, it's California. It's not near the other side of the world. But yeah,
the West Coast of England, but it's the West Coast. No, it's a good way to. No, I think it's exactly how I have it too. It's like it's with the whole. But I have it a big picture because you talk to a lot of people, like, they put out this like stupid things on Facebook, like put a check by every state you're in, all that kind of stuff. But I call it stupid, but I find myself always doing it. I don't post, but I'm like, been there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then you look at it and you're kind of like, and you see other people get on there and they're like on a like a check of like 25. It's like they've got 4, and I'm like, you know what I mean? And then, but I don't know, you talk to people, and I don't think there's anything wrong with staying in the same place and being around the thing. But I think sometimes when you start looking at opportunity and to take the next step and explore, I think there's so many people that are really reluctant because, like you said, to some people going to California is like, is like us going to England, right? And then us going to England is like going to Russia, or so. Like they just have this like, it's really not that difficult if you've been exposed to different things. I mean, that's how it's kind of weird. I just think that people that have been like in one place, or they kind of just don't know how the rest of the world, and it's not just the world, it's the rest of the states actually operate in some aspect.
And like you said, there's neither good nor bad. There's good to both, right? They have a good structure, a sound place to come back. Great. They're comfortable there. But I find that people maybe like that have a heart. It's like a magnet, keeps, like, the further they go, the stronger the pull back is, and they don't want to go that far. Like Riley said, he was going to go to school in Florida, and they were like, Florida, like, wow, like, there people are like, oh, we're going to Columbus to go to school, or we're going to, Indianapolis, and a couple hours away, and he's like going to Florida. Like, how are you going to do that? Like, are you going to miss? And he's like, no, it's only a plane ride away. Like,
right.
So,
the college thing, I think it does. Like your son Riley went to Embry-Riddle, right? He did. So I mean, that's if you're getting that career, that's kind of a pretty important school to go to. So it makes sense. But I think too, sometimes we're talking about parents. We're about the same age. Like a lot of it too is like the parents pull on them as well. Like if someone wants, my only thing about going out of state becomes money, right? Like how much it costs to do that. I think there's always a thought about that. But if someone wants to go to school, if one of my boys was saying they want to go to school in like Wyoming, if that's where it's going to better their career, make them happy, why not? But there's that pull, I think sometimes by, you got to stay here, you got to stay like Otterbein or, where you don't really get.
Yeah. That was sort of another thing that my wife and I talked about, because neither one of us had a big backing to where we were going to go to school. She went to school because she got a full ride scholarship, right? Because she was a valedictorian of her class, and it was all paid for. I struggled because I had to work in order to go to school, because I had to pay for it, right? Even though I could live rent free with one of my parents, but it was still had to work to pay for school, and school was on the other side of town and all that. And we were like, when it gets to time, we'll pay for it. So at the end of the day, I have this huge mortgage on this great house. Apparently, I don't know where it is, but we're paying for it.
That's a good thing. So UK, I mean, you were playing softball, fixing generators, working crazy hours, and taking one class every 8 weeks. What was your favorite thing about living in the UK?
The weather.
The weather?
Yes, the weather.
I've never heard anybody say that they love the weather in England.
What
did you love?
So summertime, like right now, high around 70, 75, sunlight whenever you wanted to be out doing something, because it's a little further north, right? And usually sort of like here in a sense, once every winter it would snow, but in the wintertime it would hover around freezing. During the day it would be a little over freezing, and in the evening it would go a little below. So it never got super, super cold, which was great because I would be on the flight line at 3 a.m. on February night, freezing if it got super, super cold. But yeah, loved the weather, loved being able to go around in England fairly easily and cheaply. We were an hour and a half outside of London, so we could go down to the tube stop and take the tube all over town for pretty cheap and see London. So, and we were 20 minutes from Cambridge.
So you got to do a lot of TDYs while you're in I mean, 6 years, a long time. It's Italy. Went to Italy a couple times. Turkey.
Yeah, I went to Turkey first. Lived in a tent on the end of the runway where they had F-111. So we got pretty much woken up every morning at 6 when they decided to take off. They were doing no fly over northern Iraq at the time. That was pretty short. I think we were there. I think we did rotations. I think my rotation was like 6 or 7 weeks. Did that one time. Got picked up or got selected.
So they had the Air Force guys saying the tent. I got to rewind that again.
Yes.
In a tent.
In a tent on a cot.
Oh.
It looked very Army. Everything was green. The base was wooden pallets that they put plywood over. And I remember the second night I worked from like 3 in the afternoon to midnight. And then there was a group that replaced us and worked until, 7 in the morning, and then a shift to work during the day. So I was sleeping, and the night shift came in, and the guy hit a patch of ice in our tent because there was a drip we didn't know about, and slid. And the next thing I know, I'm looking at the blue sky because he slid right out the side, took the whole tent with him. So yeah, we roughed it, right? Come on. So the next one after that is I went to Aviano, Italy, for 3 months. And I got picked because I was the only one there's 150 of us that were in the squadron doing age. And on a random Friday at noon, the flight chief came out and was like looking around. He sees me and he's making a beeline. I was like, oh, here it goes. What's he going to want now? And he goes, hey, do you want to go to TDY? And I was like, where to? And he goes, Italy. And I was like, where? And he goes, oh, up by Venice. And I was like, that sounds good. He goes, great. 6 months. You leave on Monday. I was like, whoa, 6 months. And he goes, what? And I was like, it's my wife's birthday and Christmas and coming up. And he goes, 3, I'll replace you in 3. I was like, great, I'll go. So I walked from there to the library where my wife's working. I was like, yeah, I got picked up to go TDY, leave Monday or Tuesday, like literally. And yeah, so I ended up staying for 3 months, 3.5 months, because we had a turnover, living in a hotel in Aviano, Italy. So
tough life.
It was. I was on the 4th floor. And Aviano was on a hill, and the flight line was down. So it was 4 miles from my hotel down, I bought a bike, and in the morning I just cruised into work. Not a problem. In the afternoon was 98 degrees. When I got there, I pedaled back up the hill. So I got in pretty good shape because when I first started, I could get to like the railroad tracks, which was like 2/3 of the way. And then I was walking, but by the end I could pedal all the way to the hotel. So I was
more talking about the hotel, from the tent to the hotel. You had to
it was nice. The air conditioning wasn't the best, but did
the wife get to come busy while you were there?
She did. Okay. She came out for her birthday for a week while we were there. Please, that's another one that she's going to grab on me. I picked her up at the airport in Venice. We stayed down there for the weekend, and then that was the plan. But they announced that they were going to go on strike, the railroad workers. So we didn't stay the whole weekend. We only stayed 1 day. So she's been to Venice. She has not been in a gondola. So yeah, I got a hit on that one.
You still got time for that, though. I mean,
we were in Vegas not too long ago, and I was like, "Hey, there's gondola at the Venetian."
Yeah,
that didn't cut it either.
We didn't have to say it was going to be in Italy, but you were going to get on one.
I mean, and the Venetian, like, come on. But so yeah, so that was 3 months. When I was there, I was walking home one night. I'd gone to see, I think I saw Jurassic Park there, and I was walking back from there's like different parts of the base. From the base place where the theater was back to my hotel was probably 3/4 of a mile. Very nice walk past the gelato place, which was excellent. And I'm walking, I got like most of the way to my hotel, and I hear a bang. And I was like, what's going on? So I went to bed, got up the next morning, went down to the flight line, and they were like, yeah, we need to see your ID. And I handed it to me, and they're like, and your driver's license. And I handed my driver's license. But at that time, if you got your driver's license renewed and you weren't there, you got one that was valid without photo. So my driver's license didn't have a picture. So they're like, you can't come into base. I was like, I've been doing this for like 6 weeks now. What's going on? And they're like, we're in ThreatCon Delta. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, they threw a grenade at the base last night. which is the bang I heard the gate I just left like 20 minutes before, 10 minutes before. So I had to sit, I'm sitting there on a bike going, I don't know how I'm going to get in here. And they're like, well, if somebody can vouch for you, we'll let you in. And eventually the commander of the squadron that I was supporting TDY recognized me and pulled over and goes, hey, what's going on? I was like, they won't let me in because I don't have 2 forms of photo ID. So he vouched for me and I got in. And then it was like that for like a week. I had been going into work earlier than everybody else, but I had to wait at the gate for somebody to vouch for me to get in while we were in Delta. And it would be the same guy every morning. I'd be like, he goes, yeah, you're going to just wait over there. Somebody, I was like, don't you know it's me by now? Like picture photo with the yellow background. Like,
Kevin, you got to know that's not the way the military works.
I know.
They're going to follow the rules because my father's an MP gate guard. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you could get vouched for 80 times in a row, but the 81st time that somebody better vouch for you again. It's like just don't overthink it.
Yeah,
man. I'm sure.
So
Army, Air Force, they're all the same. When you talk about those people, like I was just here yesterday. Yeah, but you still don't have 2 IDs. It's like no, I'm not gonna for the next 3 months either. But that's cool. Thank you.
There's a joke I could put in there, but it better not. Your dad will throw something at me.
We're all about jokes.
We'll keep going. It's not nice.
That's good. So you got to get. I mean, that's a good little TDY. It said you went to you. So when did you how did you work 6 years though? How does it work for 6 years over there? Did you decide to did you re-enlist to stay there, and how did that work?
Yeah. So I got there in December of 1991. December 20th of 1991. Great time to show up to a base. If you've been in the military, know you're shut for basically 2 weeks. So I did virtually nothing for 2 weeks in a dorm in Stark. And then, so 3 years after that would have been 1994 when I was due for an assignment, and we decided to do a consecutive overseas tour. So we put in for that. Paperwork got messed up and I got an assignment and I was like, what's going on? And somebody said, no, they didn't turn in your stuff. And I was like, what? So I go to the commander's office and they're like, yeah, your paperwork's sitting right here. I was like, it's signed and everything. It's sitting right. Why is it there and not at the place? So they actually undid it and gave me a consecutive overseas tour. So we stayed right in the spot for another 3 years. So my son was born 6 months after that. Like, because for a while we thought we were leaving, and I thought we were leaving like in the summer, but then they said no, you can stay.
So what made you guys decide to want to stay overseas 2 consecutive tours?
Why not? Join to see the world, right?
No, I mean, yeah,
and we liked it.
I mean, it's not. I mean, I would just say that people I know, it's not like a normal. A lot of people that go, did 3 years overseas, they come back. There's, like you said earlier, there's that draw to like come back to family. The
I
States.
went into the recruiter's office by the Florida Mall in Orlando, Florida, and he goes, "Yeah, so what do you want to do?" I was like, "I want to leave Florida."
Yeah.
So I had no draw to go back. I still don't have a draw to go back. Like, my wife and daughter are going to Florida next week, and I'm not going with them. Somebody has to stay and watch the farm, thank God. But yeah, so that draw for me has never been there. I've never been drawn back to, this is the house I grew up in. This is the place I was from. I've been past the house in Virginia where I live, but I'm like, okay, I don't need to live there again.
Is there a reason why you don't think that is? I mean, is there some stuff that just not, I mean, why you're not drawn back to it? Is it just?
No, it's just, I am one of those that, like, I mean, like I said, all of us the 4 of us in our family have been to all 50 states. And then I'm like, okay, where am I going to go next? Like last summer I had an extra few days of leave I needed to burn in my job because we can have a max balance. So I hopped on a plane and went to Switzerland. In Zurich I was there for like 3 days. One of the days I took a train out to get on a bus to go to Liechtenstein because I'd never been there. So I was like, all right, I've been to Liechtenstein now. Like, so I have that sort of mentality, like, let's see where else we can go. Let's see what else we can see. Right. So, and for whatever reason, my kids have that too. So,
yeah. Well, I think nostalgia thing, like, I think sometimes it's part of, like, there's a nostalgia to go back for something. But every time I go back to like where he grew up, it's like, it always seems smaller than what it was. And then you're just like, it's the past, right? So I couldn't, you know, I was the same way. I've never been like John to be like, okay, let's move back to, you know, Orange County, New York, and live there, because number one, the taxes and living in New York would drive me nuts. But
and it's never going to be the same.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. It's never ever going to be the same as it was, because you're different. The people are different. They've moved on. So it's just not gonna. I mean, you're not the same. I'm not the same now as when we got married. So I mean, obviously things change there too. But yeah, I've just never had that draw of, let me go live in the same place. No.
So what year did you end up coming back?
So actually I came back in 1996 for a semester of bootstrap at the University of Central Florida again, because I was trying to get into Air Force ROTC to finish my degree. At Thanksgiving break, they said, yeah, no, we don't have a spot for you, because they were making cuts. So I went back for another year, and Bryn and Riley stayed in Florida and lived with their parents for 1997. And then So what was that like, going back out over there without them? It was not great. It wasn't fun. For a lot of reasons, right? I thought I was going to be there and still, you know, be going towards a degree, but they made cuts, and the first cuts are the people that are already in. So they're like, yeah, you're already in. We're saving a spot that we can for somebody to come into ROTC. So, sort of backwards thinking to some, but I was like, I can understand it. So it was rough. It was hard. But you know, you just do it.
What was the hardest part about it?
Just being away from them. I mean, obviously, and then not going back and not have done what you knew you were gonna, or what you thought you were gonna do.
Right.
So, because we had discussions when I got picked up for that I would come back by myself, and I was like, yeah, but that's 3 months that I'll be gone, and then you guys would come join me. So we were like, all right, we'll just all go together, and then the reverse happened, and it was longer apart. But. So
what made you decide to start going the officer route? What drove you to that?
So at the end of my time in Mildenhall, I got during 1997, I went to 7-level school, which once you become an NCO, they send you to 7-level school so you can do inspections and sign off people's work, you know, all this stuff. And I was in Shepherd Air Force Base, Texas, where the tech school had moved to, and they were begging for instructors. So much so that I was like, I'm sort of interested, because I knew the overseas returnee list went by who had been over there the longest. And I was second coming back from Europe. And I knew the guy coming first was going to pick up the Davis-Monthan slot. And that means I was left with Minot, Ellsworth, North Dakota, and somewhere else I didn't want to go. So I was like, well, at least I know coming to Texas, like, okay, this could be cool. The commander there called Europe and asked him if they would release me 6 months early so I could just stay there and be an instructor, and they wouldn't do it. So then I had to go back, but then I had an assignment like almost instantly to go to Wichita Falls, Texas, and be a tech school instructor. So, and you learn pretty quickly after I got there, probably within a couple years, they're always short on instructors because nobody volunteers, or few people volunteer to become an instructor. They all get, there and then try to get out as quickly as you can. It's a 4-year controlled assignment. No TDYs, which was great. So I was always there 9 to 5 or 7 to 3 or 3 to 11 because we did 2 shifts. Inside most of the time. You had some outside work, but most of the time you're inside. But the only way to get out of there was to get out of the Air Force, take a remote assignment for a year, which you could pick your follow on, or become an officer. And right around, 2000, we had in our squadron, which was more than just age, but there was, probably 500 instructors total. 100 people went to officer training school.
Oh, wow. Because
after you taught for 2 years, you basically had like most of you definitely had your associates done, and probably a little bit further than that. So it became basically a pipeline. Like every time a class in Maxwell started, there would be 10 people from Shepherd Air Force Base in that class, or 20, right? So there was a big turnover. So I was like, all right, that's the way to go. I was at my 10-year mark, which I was like, I'm either going to get out or I'm going to stick to it to retirement. And if I stay in, I want to actually get a little more money, like, you know, to where I could maybe buy a new car instead of used car after used car. So that's what spurred me. I was like, all right, let's do this.
So back to the instructor thing, what do you think the struggle was for finding instructors? I mean, it's an assignment where, you know, you're home every night. You're pretty stable thing. What do you think is the deterrent for? What didn't you like about it? I guess.
It's very repetitive, right? Like you learn how to teach 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of equipment, and then you take a class of students through that 3, and then maybe have a day or 2 off, and then pick up another class and take them through the thing, right? And there are civilians that teach and there are military, right? And there's sort of always a little tension there. So there's that. But I think really a lot of people didn't know about the job. I didn't really, but when I was there and saw the facility and saw what it was, like, I was like, yeah, I can do this. This isn't hard. It was weird at the time because I'm a bit of an introvert. And my wife was like, so you're going to get in front of people and like talk? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. Maybe.
We're going to find out.
We're going to give it a go. So, but yeah, it was interesting. And that's where, our daughter was born. So where I was on September 11th, and eventually got to the point where it was pretty clear that I was like, all right, I'm going all out and go to officer training school. I had been going to the education's office and taken still one class every 8 weeks for their college semester. And I had a guidance counselor there who said, oh, you only need like a few more classes, we can put your package in, because you don't have to graduate, but you have to be within a year of graduation. And so she did all the credits I had amassed, all the experience that I had and where I was at. And she said, if you take a couple of CLEP tests and pass one, I think I can get you in the next time. And she goes, and if you can pass 7 of them in 2 more basic and take these 2 classes, you can be graduated with your bachelor's degree. So I scheduled 8 CLEP tests, and then we did them on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I did Tuesdays and Thursdays for 4 straight weeks, and I passed them all, which she was like, how did you do that? You didn't even have time to study. I was like, who needs to study? Just take the test. So got my degree, got a slot for officers training school.
So what CLEP test? What classes were you still? He's like nuclear biology, macro, microeconomics.
With a concentration on brain surgery. No, just the basic stuff, humanities. I had the math credits, but it was other stuff. I took humanities. I took a history class. I think I even took an English class. I took one English class in England, but I think I needed another one. So I U.S. government. That was a hard one. So, I mean, I was working in the U.S. government, so I sort of knew that.
And you did this all without the internet?
Yeah, no internet, no studying,
no computer.
Going in there with a number 2 pencil, like 3 number 2 pencils is all you had, and circling bubbles for 2 hours. But yeah, so I got my degree. Then I had coached Little League 1 year, and one of the guys I worked with was an umpire, and about 3/4 of the way through the season, he came up to my desk at work and goes, hey, so I need to talk to you. And he goes, what's up? And he goes, you keep throwing the rule book in my face. Why don't you come be an umpire? He goes, you get to go to the games and get paid. And I was like, paid? Okay. So I became an umpire starting out JV high school teams and started doing high school games. Did that for a couple of years, and it was pretty good money compared to what I was making. It was a good bump of money, except for one April, like the 5th of April, I was doing a game way out in, I forget where it is, Chillicothe, Texas or something. And it was raining. And the next morning I went to get out of bed and I hit the floor and I messed up my back. That delayed me going to OTS because now I have back problems. So I was like, I'm good enough to be active duty enlisted. I'm not good enough to go to officer training school. So that was a sort of a year, not quite a year, but a 10-month ordeal to get cleared to go to officer training school because I had to be symptom free, which meant no back pain.
Did you ever find out what was wrong with your back?
Yeah, I had bulging disc.
I thought it was like carrying that big old, remember the umpire pad, the big old.
It probably had nothing to do with that at all because we wore like this. I did not do the big blue pad.
Remember the big blue pad? Yeah. I mean, it's always fine. But I had an umpire question. Like, this is interesting to talk about this. Now, we'll kind of, I was going to hit this later, but you stopped umpiring like around when?
I stopped umpiring when I retired from the Air Force.
So
2013. Yeah.
So all my boys played baseball pretty high, too, in the college. And so I've been around, I played baseball as well. So it's like been around a long time. Would you umpire in today's element with the parents and the kids now?
So the thing about umpiring, when I was umpiring, even when I'm played umpire right there, I never heard what the parents said because I didn't really care what they said.
Yeah.
You get some, like you see videos all the time of umpires throwing parents out. I never threw a parent out. I would throw a coach out. I threw a lot of coaches out. But I didn't care what they said because they don't know. They're not there. Right. If you know, the plate is right here and you and I are right here, but somebody 60 feet that way behind a fence is saying that they know better than what you know.
Well, to me, it was like, I know what you're saying. I've like, as a parent, I've ever been thrown out of a game. Yes.
I'm sort of.
Should I have been thrown out more times than somebody else took the heat for me? Yes. But my thing was like with umpiring is, it's the sport is blown up when I say like travel sports. So like if you, especially where we live here in Columbus, some cities like it's balls to the wall baseball. Like you go down to like some of these parks here and there's 30 games going on. Mm-hmm. So you got, and it's from, Thursday to Sunday. So you have all these umpires to go through. Like what I found though is like almost like I wasn't the guy who was like arguing like balls and strikes per se, but it was more like I felt like umpires didn't know the rules. Like I mean, you have guys that would be out there that are like they call a play and they don't ask for help and then that's what I'd end up being like, ask the other guy like, or they don't even they don't even know the rules. That's what I found. So, but I just felt like it's gotten more where now. And the other thing too is I don't remember growing up having that, like my dad never came to my game. He didn't really come to a lot of games, but I don't remember there being like every like 50 or 60 parents watching the game. So it's like the game has changed a lot where parents are there, they're videotaping it. It's on like it's live stream. So it's just, I feel like it's just one of those things where
everything's gone that way, right? Though everything's gotten grander than what it was. I mean, it was simpler times. When I was playing Little League, we wore blue jeans and a t-shirt. Our game started at 5.
Yeah.
Right. Or if you had the late game, because there was no lights, like there might be a game after that.
Yeah.
But we had no lights.
That's true. I mean, but I think it has gotten, I just think I think that's one thing I look at is it's something that's always been part of our, like, I've watched my kids go through it and I think that you've like watched it evolve and get to a point where it's kind of like, there's a lot of like, everybody becomes a baseball expert. That's my thing too, is like with parents now, it's like you talk to a parent and they've never even played baseball and they're telling you about these rules. It's like, dude, like, you don't know what you're talking about. But it just seems like it's like a thankless job because I think the umpires you can't do it without the umpires, or can you? That's the next question.
I mean,
can you be without umpires?
Yeah, you can. I mean, literally, I was umpiring a game. I was in the field once, and there was this protracted thing going on with both coaches and the home plate umpire, and it wasn't contentious because I didn't go up to help him out. He was like, I don't need it. It was some scoring thing because they were with the score or whatever. And we're there, and so the second baseman, the shortstop, and the runner are all around the bag. It's like, hey, what do you say we kick all the parents and just you guys play this game? Like, can we do that? Like, no, we can't. But boy, it would be there. But you played, I mean, baseball in the neighborhood or stickball or whatever. Yeah, every now and then it might get a little crazy, but I mean, I never had a fist fight over something, we would just be like,
No,
all right,
no.
whatever. We'll just replay, whatever would be about as bad as it got. Right.
So Shannon's saying kids not allowed to head slide, but have to have their sliding gloves on. Yeah, and it's the game has changed in some way, and it's gone away from the kids. I think it's gotten crazy too. Like, do you still watch baseball now?
Yeah,
Okay.
I like it live way better than watching it on TV. I don't watch it really much on TV anymore.
Because I was saying about the umpires, like you have today, like with if you watch a lot of baseball, they've got the strike box.
Yeah,
and we were talking about this at lunch today. I'm like, either use it, which the technology works, right, or like take it off the screen. Like don't because what you end up doing is, like, for me, I find that like most people want to talk about even the play-by-play guys, right, or gals, they're talking about the pitch or this stuff. It's like either just because what are you doing there? If you're not, I can understand like having it. The technology doesn't have to be up there for them to rate the umpire, right? I'm all about like some of the other things that have happened, but the ball and strike thing, I'm like, I think if either you use it or you get rid of it, you know what I mean? And don't talk about it, but like having it up there and watching a ball, go outside. I mean, my dad he's probably watching, he's over there watching a game right now. And if it's any Yankee that's getting a bad call, he's going to you can watch his body and be like, oh, that's but it's interesting with umpiring. That's why I think for me, I'm like the home plate umpire. I'm like, why don't you just, take away the balls and strikes, use the system, and take away the human element of it.
They've done a few minor league games in the last few years, each year, with just that, calling balls and strikes. I don't know. It's sort of subjective. It's sort of fluid. It's different with every batter and where they're in the box. And I don't think the technology's quite there, because it's just one line, and the strike zone is sort of 3D.
But the one I saw is different. I think the one when I saw it was like the box is 3D. So like how I watched that series was like, if you get in there, like whatever your height is, it's adjust. The cameras can adjust it. So it's like 99.5% active, and it can switch from batter to batter. You kind of see it.
That's what
they
you
do
need.
It right. It shrinks on some of the players. It's not the same size, but like it has that 3D, and it's a 3D box. It's not just how we see it, like
just that flat thing.
So so if it works, but I think my struggle with that is there's still a fun part about when an umpire, you didn't really agree with their call, that human, the human element to it. But if you have umpires that you're seeing now where like they're having a 78% accuracy rate, then maybe.
Yeah,
then maybe
they shouldn't be in the. They shouldn't be there. And there were many times when I was umpiring, and I started when I was in Texas. There was a college travel team that we would umpire for, and these guys were all like graduated seniors over the summer, or college kids that were trying to get scholarships and go. So it was like pretty intense. And even at that game, but even in some random JV game, there were many times behind the plate, and I'd make a call. And then the batter, the catcher won. I was like, yeah, I missed that one. Don't worry about it. So
yeah, but that's what I think. Yeah, that's the human error, and like admitted to it. I think everybody's that played baseball, you've had an umpire like maybe like 2 innings later, they'll be like, hey, I might have missed that one.
And it would, a lot of times it would be like, the first time behind the plate in a few days, and this kid has a great curveball, and it's coming from behind a right-hand batter, so you see it for like that fast because the batter's blocking you because of where you need to be, and you're like, I gotta call that. So that makes that one a ball because I didn't say anything. And then you tell the catcher, dude, I missed it, but I won't miss the next one. So
I will tell you, the umpires that I have all the props for. I played a couple of different men's leagues, and you have umpires that are out there umpiring like 40-year-old men, 30-year-old men. I got to give a lot of prep to them because they take a lot of crap, and they're like, we were in a tournament in Indiana, and we were arguing about something, and this one umpire was like, listen, man, like, if you say one more word to me, I'm running you out of this game. He's like, I'm not going to listen to a bunch of, 30-year-old dudes out of their prime complaining about. So, and he's wearing an NCAA hat, like he's like, that's the call. And you're like, well, you don't have to get all crazy. He's like, I'm just telling you, you're 30. How old are you? He's like, I think I was like 30, 32. They're like, you're 32 years old, playing in Indiana. Like no one's here. Like there's like literally like 4 people watching the game. He's like, I don't get paid enough. So. But without the sport, I mean, that's one of those things in any sport without the umpires, without referees,
they could be better. I umpired an adult league in Texas where it was all Spanish speaking folks. I speak very little Spanish, even though I work with people that are fluent. but at the time, no Spanish. So disagree to call, and they would just start blah, and I have no idea what they said. And I'm glad, because I probably was getting chewed out. Right. So it made it easy. We got paid cash before the game started to call their game. And, they were happy you were there. But every now and then you miss a call and they'd be like saying something. You're like, I don't even know.
So, thank God I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So let's get back on track.
All right.
We'll get back to you recovered from the back.
Yep. Recovered from the back thing. Finally, I was symptom free at a doctor's appointment, because he basically had the form from the Surgeon General of the Air Force saying, and it was a civilian doctor downtown. And I had cortisone shots, and he goes, okay, it says you need to say that you're symptom free. Do you feel any pain right now? And I said, no. And I'd had cortisone shots, and 2 weeks later, second shot. And this follows up was 4 days after, which before it all started, the doctor was like, this is the sweet spot. 4 days, you won't feel any pain. And I've got to certify this. So he asked me, I was like, no pain. Done. Here you go. A couple weeks later, I had back pain. When I went to OTS, I had back pain. I slept on the floor some nights because it was sore. Even now, still, I get it from time to time. But I went to OTS and I survived.
So how long is that for Air Force?
8 weeks. I started. Is it longer? Is it 12 weeks? Started in February, got done May, right before. I graduated the Friday before Memorial Day. So in 2002, when I was commissioned before all the Service Academy guys were commissioned. So I outrank all of them in 2002, which comes into play when I was in Afghanistan, because an Army guy tried to challenge me. So I was like,
on data rank?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, come on. You know the Army. They will take you down to the 14th digit of your Social Security number. Whichever one's higher outranks you.
Data rank.
But
that's true. That does happen. Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah, he was arguing with me that he outranked me because he went to the academy. And I was like, I graduated 4 days before you. And he's like, yeah, but your data ranks after mine. I was like, no, I'm not ROTC. I'm officer training school. My data rank is 4 days before you.
So officer training school, do you know before you get into it, or at what point at school do you know what you're going to do in the Air Force?
So sort of the same thing as you join. When you apply, you have a dream sheet and you fill it out, So I was a mechanic. So I put in for like aircraft mechanic, satellite, missile mechanic, satellite operator. I was like, sure, those all sound fun. I can do all those. And I get accepted, and the colonel handed me my thing, and she goes, oh, you're going to be a contracting officer. I was like, thank you. And she left. I was like, what the hell is that? I have no idea. So because there were so many people at Shepherd that are always going to officer training school, they had this group that met like once a month and talked about, hey, this is what they're telling us. The people that graduated last class would come and talk to you and say what's going on. And in that group, I knew somebody that worked in the contracting. So I was like, hey, what do you do? She's like, I'll come over to my office. I'll show you. So I went over and I spent a few hours with her. And at the end, I was like, so basically you shop? She goes, yeah. So that's how I knew. I was like, all right. So like anything people need, and some of the best stuff that I have done has been people walking to my office and pulling something out of their pocket and go, here, I need 4 of these. Great. I know from a mechanic, these are fuses. What rating are they? We don't know. I was like, then how do you know they're going to work? If you don't know that, just wrap them with some aluminum foil and stick them back in there. Right. But yeah, so it was fun.
Well, I think it's interesting contracting, military contracting. Like, I think there's a lot of like people, if you've never been in, there's a lot of interesting like stories about it. Like you'll hear the military buying like $700 toilet seats. Like what is the biggest rumor, like false rumor you heard about military contracting?
$500 hammer.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you, and those are sort of life cycle, like buying the hammer, storing it till it's needed, sending it where it's needed. If you add all that up, yeah, it gets expensive. Right. But yeah, some of those are. Have you ever seen Pentagon Wars?
Yeah, a long time ago. But
that's the perfect movie. If anybody wants to know about the way the government buys things, it's perfect.
I haven't seen that in a while. Who's in that again? I forget. It's not Kelsey Grammer.
Yes, yeah, Kelsey Grammer. I forget the other person, but it's Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah, it's like it was. There's so many. That is true. That's a movie to go back and watch. I haven't seen that for a while.
That's exactly the whole, procurement thing of a good idea started with a great idea and ended up being what did it end up something?
It's the Abrams. It's the Bradley. That's why.
The
Yeah,
Bradley.
okay, yeah.
Which when it got into mud, it sinks and gets stuck. But
well, I think the funniest part of that is when if you remember the movie, is they were talking about how it started off, and then all of a sudden, all the generals were like, it needs to be a tank killer. It needs to be like, and then they were redrawing it, and then before you're like, wow, we really did get stuck with.
If you look at what they started with, it was a good idea, and what they ended up with was horrible. And yes, that happens over and over.
I'm glad. I gotta watch those. I'm trying to think who else has done it. That was a good movie. That was a good. And you wouldn't think there was a movie about contracting, but there is. I mean, there's always a movie.
Sort of is, and it's a comedy, and it's hilarious, and it's very freaking accurate. Like, because all the politicians get involved. Because,
they go to the test range and what's his name in it? Because I'm trying to think of his name right now. Oh my gosh,
I don't.
Brad Pitt's not in that one, is he?
No, it's before.
Who plays the man? Because they try to hide all the stuff. It is. You just gotta. We won't ruin it for you, but it's definitely a funny.
It's flammable at one point because of something they put in it, and it's supposed to be carrying troops, and you're just like, oh my gosh, put more armor, that'll save it. And it's just
that was a good one.
Hilarious.
So contract, like your job is, like you said before, just find whatever airmen or people needed. And
yep. I've bought everything from water in Qatar. Actually, I bought a lot of water in Qatar, up to I was on the B2, and I bought the last radar upgrade to the B2 right before I retired. So, and everything in between, like, anything that you can think of: printer paper, toner cartridges, computer systems, computers, Bobcat, Toolcat things that to sweep off the runway, like tons and tons of stuff. I bought in Afghanistan. I bought a guy 5,000 bricks so he could build a barbecue pit.
That's God's work right there.
You
made a lot of people happy with that.
I made myself happy because I told him I could get him the bricks because they were having somebody he knew somebody in Nebraska that raised this like really good beef, and they were going to fly in like 500 steaks. And I was like, I'll do it for a steak. And he goes, everybody in your office can have a steak. I was like, all right. 2 days later, he had all his bricks, and he built it all. So
I was an S4, and I thought that was a fun job because there is something about the challenge of like, and like and it was harder back then, right? Like it wasn't like you could go on all these like you had to like search and stuff. I still remember like when
phone calls.
We went to NTC. We were like the Force 21, like the first like digitized. I mean, everything was like we were going, and like we needed all these batteries. So I was in Bardstown, and I just when I started buying just batteries, like went to Walmart or something, and I'm like, do you guys have more of these? And they're bringing them out, and you're just like carts, like just, and there's such a satisfaction of when you like the things that someone needs and you getting it, you're like, because sometimes it's not as easy as you think. And then there's a lot of like bartering, which like bartering is always fun. If you got to barter, like you got something I need, I always like the whole bartering system. But that's a fun job. There's a lot of
I mean, I've had fun doing whatever I was doing, wherever I was at for a long time. I see Shannon Skinner's name up there. He'll tell you he was in my tech school class in 1991. So, but I've always had fun with it. But you're right. Like the strangest things become like, oh my gosh, we need these. I had a wreck in Afghanistan for a cable. It needed to be 6 meters long or some crazy thing. And they needed one. And I was like, well, that's strange. So I get a phone call randomly too from this colonel, and he says, hey, you have my wreck? And I was like, yeah, I see it. I don't know what I'm doing about it, but I see it. And because I would always have a stack. Like I had three guys working for, or 3 people working for me and myself, and we would have a stack of purchase requests like that all the time. Usually around 100 of them that I was thumbing through. And I was like, I've got it. And he goes, look, here's the deal. That's the cable that goes between the howitzer and the guidance computer. And we're up here and they're walking in mortars on us, and we're down to 1. So we don't have the other one. So we can't, and they know it because they would set up mortars here one day and there the next, and we can only shoot at one place. So if we guess wrong, we can't even fire at them, and they get a free shot and they can adjust. Right. And he goes, but I can tell you this, there's one person that makes this in the world, this cable, with, so many strands inside. Like he was very detailed of what he needed. And he actually gave me this lady's phone number. So I call her, she's in outside of Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. She's building these things in her garage. And I was like, I need one. And she goes, yep, they're $14.95. I was like, we have a credit card. She goes, I don't take credit card. I was like, I can write you a check if you send me a receipt, but I need this like right now. She goes, I'm not shipping it until I get paid.
14. How much was this?
$14.95. Right. It's always the cheap stuff that is the biggest pain in the butt. So I'm talking to her and it's probably midnight my time. Cause she's like, look, I'm getting ready to go to bed and I'm in Afghanistan. She's in Florida. So that's a big time difference. And it's way in the morning for me. I was like, I'm going to call you tomorrow. Think about it. Think about any way possible that I can give you payment. I've got a check I can mail you. I've got, a credit card. I can give you a credit right now. So the next day I called her back. She goes, I was talking to a friend of mine and she takes a credit card. But there's a minimum charge. I was like, great. So I bought 4 of these cables to get over whatever her minimum charge was, right? And pay the minor fee. It really wasn't that bad to do this. And she goes, if you call her and pay for it, I'll put it in the mail today. So I hung up the phone, called this other lady, had my person that had the credit card, because it wasn't mine. It was somebody who worked for me. Get on the phone, pay for it, get it all done. We emailed her a receipt. She emailed us back a thing. 2 days later, she overnighted it for me and I paid extra for that, of course. And I get this thing. We were right across the street from the post office and they come over and go, hey, this is for you. And hands me this manila envelope and I open it up and there's these cables. I was like, great. So I pick up the phone and call this colonel. I was like, hey, sir, I got your cables. He goes, no fucking way. And I was like, yeah. He goes, like, you have them. I was like, they're in my hand right now. He goes, I'll send a chopper. I was like, thanks, Arnold. Like, all right.
So that's how it goes
send
from
the
14.
chopper. So they were at a fob, like way up north. It was like a 30-minute chopper ride down. And I'm not kidding you. When I hung up the phone, I looked at the time. 30 minutes later, I hear an airplane because out our back doors is the flight line. I hear a chopper come down. And this guy comes and he's like dripping with sweat, dust all over him, like in his t-shirt. And he goes, I'm here to see Captain Shipe. And I was like, yep, come on. And he comes around and he goes, you have cables for me? I was like, yeah, what do you got for me? He goes, what? And I was like, the colonel said that you would have something for me. And he goes, I don't have any. I was like, just go. It's too easy to play with the Army guys. So,
and that is why a $14.95 cable actually costs $500.
Yeah,
the flight time of the aircraft,
down.
Like at least, what he didn't tell you is the Black Hawk on the way back had a major malfunction, had to, land. And
yeah.
No.
But the colonel called me back when he got the cable later and he said, he goes, hey, we got it and it works. If you can get up here, I will let you fire the howitzer. And I was like, I'm an Air Force guy. I'm going to get up there. I never made it. I couldn't make it work because we weren't allowed to leave base that often.
So somebody just put up, it looks like a family member, the wife.
Yeah, that's the wife.
She's in there. Like, I love when the wife's harassing. She's actually being nice to you on there after.
Hey,
look at that, after 32
years. Yeah.
She said
she's nice in public.
So. I thought she's going to talk about buying a circus tent. So you have to tell, like,
yeah, that was in Djibouti, Africa, which was my second deployment as a contracting officer. The hottest place I've ever been in the world. If you want to know what it's like in Djibouti, put your oven on 450. And when it gets up to temperature, stand right above it and open the door. That's what it's like every time you walk outside of a building in Djibouti. It would be 147, the wet bulb dry globe temperature, which it wasn't air temperature, but because you're so close to the equator, that's what it feels like on your skin. Right. And that was where I was working with the Navy. Bless their hearts. And I got promoted to captain there in Camp Lemonnier, the beautiful place that it is. So there was an Air Force contingent out there supporting the flight line. And this chief comes in and he goes, hey, Captain. He goes, actually, I think I was a lieutenant still when he ordered it. But when I got it there, I was a captain. And he goes, so these guys out on the flight line, when they go to touch the age equipment, they're burning themselves. And I was like, yeah, I used to be an age mechanic. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. That flat, that dark green, the sun bakes on it. He goes, I need to get them shelter to work. during the day. At night, they don't need it, but during the day. So I was like, all right, what do you got? And he goes, I got all the money I need. He goes, I just need something. So again, not really internet. This was 2000, it's 2007. But I find this place out of Florida that sells tents that they set up. And they actually have tents that are big enough to when the B-2 lands in San Diego Garcia that they can cover. So I was like, so I call him and I said, hey, I need a tent. Like, all right, how big? And I give him the measurements. He goes, yeah, sure. I was like, give me the cost and how fast can you get it here? And he goes, oh, we have them built. He goes, you're there. I can pretty much get there pretty easy. So, I can be there in a month with it. It takes me 2 days to put it together. I was like, great. He goes, what color do you want it? What? He goes, oh, we have tons of colors. What color do you want it? And I was like, well, I mean, it's protecting it from the heat. So white makes sense, at least for the top. He goes, yeah, that works. And I was like, and I am on this camp that is Navy. Do you have any blues? He goes, yeah. I was like, how about that for the side? He goes, all right. And I was like, I have one more request. I was like, all right. And he goes, it had double doors in the front, so it totally opened up, and it was like 30 feet across. And I was like, when I opened them double doors and I looked at the back wall, I want to see the Air Force symbol. He's done. Not a problem. So I ordered a Air Force blue tent with a white top and the Air Force symbol on the back wall on a Navy base. With their money, they paid for it. And he came and set it up. And so I ordered a circus tent for the guys, and they loved it. Like,
so they had to come set this thing up.
They came over. Yep. Apparently it was somewhere fairly close, but they came over, sent 2 guys, set it up in like a day because it was all aluminum and prefabbed. Like they only had certain sizes.
Right.
So when I told him it wasn't exactly the same size I got, but he's like, oh, I have this size. And how do you want the door? You want it roll up? You want it? So he put it together, came over, and done in like a month up there. So that was my leave your Air Force symbol behind. So I also did that in Afghanistan. When I got there, the guy I'd replaced was having the fuel tanks repainted because they were, you know how we are, put fuel in and make it bright white. So they wanted to tone down and be tan, right? So they were finishing up, and the guy's like, do you want anything on there at all? Like we can paint on, on the top if you have the base number or runway number or anything on the top. And I was like, you know what? You're in Afghanistan. There were 2 tanks side by side. I was like, your color is red, right? And he goes, yeah. I was like, can you put US on one for United States and AF on the other for Afghanistan? He's like, yeah, that would be awesome. So these tanks are like 30 yards across or whatever. On one of them, 20-foot high US side by side. The other one, 20-foot high AF side by side. And I'm sitting it got done. I paid the guy for putting up a ladder and climbing up and painting the whole thing and doing stuff. And one day, again, flight line's right out our back door. One of the guys comes in and goes, hey, Commander wants to see you. I was like, all right. He goes, just come on. He needs 10 minutes. Okay. So I go out the back door, and we're walking across the street down the flight line past all the helicopters. The medical helicopters are right across the street from us where they always landed with people. And then all these other, and it's like a row of like 30 helicopters, right? And we get about halfway down there, and I see somebody by a helicopter, and all of a sudden that helicopter starts to churn. And I'm like, what is going on? I was like, hey, I can't leave the base. I don't have permission. You're not going anywhere. All right. So I get down, doors open. Commander comes out his office door when I get and he meets me perfectly at perfect timing right there. And he goes, get in. And I was like, all right. And he's yelling over the things going off. We put headphones on. We go straight up, and he leans over me because he's on the right side. I'm on the left side, right above these tanks. And he goes, what the fuck is that? And I was like, those are fuel tanks. And there's a pause. And he goes, why does it say United States Air Force? I was like, what? I was like, no. I was like, that says US Afghanistan. I didn't even put it there. The guy that painted it asked if he could put it there because of the partnership of our countries. And he goes, whatever. And we land and go back. And he was trying to bust me because he thought I was like, if I had USAF, I would have made it blue. Would not have been in Afghanistan red color.
I thought it was US as fuck as well. That's what it go. I mean, I know you meant with the US. Nice move though. I mean, that's a nice.
I was like, yeah, red. And it was absolutely, from my standpoint, USA Air Force. But
it'd been better if the store could open the door and like hung you out about it. You know, I mean, you're gonna repay.
No, he was just like right over there. He's like, how much did you pay? I was like, I didn't even pay for it. The contractor did it on their own.
Did you keep it that way? Did you didn't?
Yeah,
it
didn't change.
Always causing problems. Look at that. I like that. The contracting officer always causing problems.
Got to have fun.
So it was like, you know, you told some, you know, good stories about like what is one of the challenges you've had being in contracting with some of the stuff with the military, especially the Air Force. I know there's old equipment, there's stuff that it's very specialized. Was there anything that was really like a pain in the butt, or
just people? I mean, I don't like people anyway. So, you know, unrealistic expectations, really. I mean, that's something I deal with still today in contracting. You know, getting stuff, people saying, oh, I need it tomorrow. Well, you should have come to me about a month ago. Right. Stuff like that. That's really the only big challenges that I've had, to be honest.
But the world has changed. Like, I mean, with contract now, it's got you know, you have so many more sources now, right? Mm-hmm. But you are used to, like, I used to be like totally like anti-Amazon. I'd be like, what are we doing to ourselves? Why the fuck do I need to have something delivered to me the next day if I order at 6 o'clock at night? No one needs that. Now I'm like super upset if I don't get same day delivery or next day. And then sometimes I just order stuff same day just because I'm like, there's no way they're getting this here by 8 p.m. and they do. So yeah. I think the expectations have gotten.
Oh yeah.
I mean the amount of, like, I mean, it used to be like,
and that would be part
of longer, I don't know what you call it, like a longer trail, but now it's like, boom, people expect like they need something, they can get it today. Like, and that kind of drives people away in normal real life. Like, if I can't get something today, I mean, I may not buy it.
Now, I have been out of the military game for buying for 14 years now, because in 2010 I left the B2 and I didn't do any more buying, right? So I don't know what it's like, to be honest, right now with that, but that would also drive people even crazier, because there's a whole bureaucratic arm going there that is built to slow things down. You have to have so many quotes. You have to have, you know, certain sources. It can't be sourced from certain places, right? So all of that plays into it as well. So I'm sure that it's a nightmare for some of those folks. And but I'm not in it. So
we can tell stories that had to be harder back then, like when you didn't have, you know, stuff on online ordering, I mean, simple things like you think about, like you said before, like going and getting like a pallet of like water, like, you know what I mean? Like all these things, like you have to show up somewhere. There was no like ordering online, having them ready for you to go. It was always like, I felt like when I would go, I felt the same way when you had, like, as far as like, if somebody had told me this a week ago, it'd be great. But like 2 hours before something's going down, like, but there was some fun in that though. There's a little bit more excitement, the thrill of like,
so I tell a lot of people, and a lot of people that I work with know that I look at my job as a puzzle. And it's part of the puzzle. Like, there's a time piece, there's a funding piece, there's a get the job done piece, and there's how can Kevin have some fun with it piece, right? But yeah, that whole puzzle, putting it together. And when I have people walk in and hand me something out of their pocket and say, I need this, and you're like, what is it? We don't know, but that's why our equipment's broke. Like, that's where some of that challenge is, and I enjoy that. But you don't get that in services really, but you do get that when you're in Afghanistan and you have somebody call and say, hey, can you get us a chainsaw? Sure. What do you need it for? And can you give me a funding request? You know, and they're like, oh, we need to cut a tree down because, you know, it's blocking our aim to where they're at on the other side of the canyon. All right, I'll get you a chainsaw. Like, and those things all like come up and down, right? You have somebody come in and say, you know, this is the battalion commander's #1 priority. Well, I prioritize this every day.
You did that right. You did the.
I heard it enough.
Yeah, that is like that's something never, like, if you'd never been, like when they bang, like
6 months of dealing with the army in Afghanistan, I know how to time it right.
That is the most important thing.
So I would have it literally. It happened in the door into our office. There was basically a counter around it and a wall, so they couldn't see us. and we had interpreters there because we dealt with contractors all the time. And they did a lot of our paperwork, and somebody would come in and go, I need to speak to somebody because, you know, my purchase request ain't going. And they would sort of glance, and I had my computer on the front. On the back, I had a little sign, you know, Captain is at lunch. And they would say, oh, he's at lunch right now. You know, what is it? What's your purchase number? And, you know, when he comes back, I'll look it up. And that would buy me a little time, but they would always come back. So, you know, they'd be like, this battalion commander's number one priority. I'd be like, okay, so you're telling me these PlayStation games are the battalion commander's number one priority. Does he have a competition he's entering or something? No, but he really thinks they need to have him at the MWR tent. Great, let's go talk to him. What? You said it's the number one priority. We'll go talk to him. I'm just guessing, you know, but out of 100, I have yours at number 99. If it needs to be closer to 1, great, but he'll let us know that. No, you just do it whenever.
Can you just move to 56?
Well, one time,
won't come back.
And that was a bluff, right? I mean, I'm smarter than Army people.
There's nothing wrong with the bluff.
I was bluffing out my butt all the time. Yes, I did say I was smarter than Army people.
I mean, the bluff is the game. That's the main thing. Like, I mean, you got to see how far you can push it
until you get called on it once. Yeah. So somebody coming in, this is battalion commander's number priority. I was like, it's desks and chairs. It's furniture, right? I have other stuff here that is probably, no, it's his number. All right, let's go talk to him. All right, let's go. So I'm putting on my top, and I'm grabbing my weapon because I'm going out of the building and I have to have it on, and going out in the heat and thinking, crap, I've done it this time, right? But I knew him because I'd been in meetings once a week. You know, I was on the wall, but I was a deputy commander over there, and commander was up. Luckily, I knew him a little better because it was after my commander had left and we got a replacement. And in the interim, I got to know him pretty well. So I walk in and see his XO. I was like, hey, we need to ask commander if this is his number one priority right now, because it doesn't jive with me, but whatever. And he heard me talking, and he comes, he like peeks out and he goes, oh, crap. He goes, Captain, is that for, you know, desks and chairs? And there was something else on it. I can't remember what it was, but a shipping container. And I was like, yeah, but we have shipping containers across the way, like stacks of them everywhere. So that's not a problem. He goes, yeah, the DEA is coming in and they're setting up camp at this place. So how fast can you get that? And I was like, oh, as fast as you need it. But I just didn't believe that was your number one priority. He goes, I forgot to tell you, but they're going to be here in 2 weeks. I was like, not a problem. I can get it in 2 weeks. But yeah, I did get called out on the battalion commander's number one priority. No, it's not. It's desks. Yeah, it was pretty high up. So I went back and had somebody order some desks and chairs. Like,
we need to order it now.
Well, I mean, it is like that. Like you have, I had like 3 people, and somebody was really good. He had knew all the players for that. And I was like, hey, can you see how fast you can get this? And we had it by like the weekend. So.
Yeah, so somebody just put absolutely nobody loves the game of out bluffing someone else more than this guy.
Absolutely, she knows.
But that's what it is in contracting and logistics. That's what it is. Like that's the when you get called on the bluff, or your call somebody else's bluff, and they call yours. There's nothing better than that. I mean, because most of the time, like I have this Benchmade knife that I got. I was in Afghanistan. I actually have 2 Benchmade knives. I mean, one of the guys gave me one. I got one just recently, but the first one I ever got was like when. You know, over in Afghanistan, everyone was getting like all the money. And if people don't know, like once, you know, you're in certain places, the money starts flowing, you can order stuff, you know, and then certain commands, you can order even more things. So there was a special forces group that was getting these Benchmades. I'm like, holy shit, I got to get a hold of one of these, you know? So I owned the warehouse at the time to do that. So I tell my warrant officer, I'm like, when the next order of these come in, you got to let me know. Like, you know, I'm going to just be hanging out when they come to pick them up. And we get there, and there's this, you know, when there's a, you know, guy from the group. He was, you know, not an SF guy, but like, you know, just, you know, nothing on there because everybody's all sterile. But you know, started talking. He's like, oh, I'm like, hey man, like, are you guys able to get these Benchmade knives that I've been here and see people? I was like, oh no. He's like, hey sir, like my commander just put the kibosh on that. We're not allowed to order those anymore. And he's like, I'd hook you up if I was allowed to order those. And I was like, so you're not allowed to order those anymore? He's like, no, we're not. The brigade, the group commander said no. I was like, well, that's a shame. Then you're not gonna be able to pick up the 25 that you have. And he was like, that's cold, sir. That's cold. And he's like, what's it gonna cost me? I'm like, one. Well, I mean, one. And I'm like, what about 2? He's like, come on. So he's like, I'm like one, I'm happy with one. He's like, but I remember him giving it to me, just being like, that was cool. But I like felt so proud of myself because you like, that's how that works sometimes, right?
Let's be honest. For like, that's how the whole military was. It's a game. And that's the only reason I lasted 22 years is because it's a game and I love to play games.
Yeah. When you get the logistics, it is a lot. Some of it is like that. And just the way you just do all kinds of stuff is like how you can barter and trade and call me because a lot of it is like,
and like that, you would have people come in. You said FF guys. I had a guy come over that was, special forces, and all the time, hey, can you give me this? Can you give me that? One time he comes in and goes, can you give me a trailer? I was like, how big? And he goes, let's say in theory, I needed the trailer that would haul 14,000 pounds. I was like, oh, you got stuck somewhere? And he goes, we sort of ran over an IED, but anyway, I was like, okay, I can get you a trailer. So I got him a trailer, and he comes back and he goes, oh, thanks, man. That bailed us out because we had to have people stay with whatever this was, which he wouldn't tell me what it was until we picked it up. And I got it to him like, that day I got a trailer for him. So he goes, what do you need? I was like, what? He goes, what do you need? He's like, do you guys have Gatorade? I was like, oh, we have all the Gatorade we need. He goes, tell me something you need. And one of my guys in the back goes, I need a mattress. And he goes, done. How many people you have here? I go, 9. He goes, all right, I have 9 mattresses over to you tomorrow. Sure enough, he had 9 of the best mattresses, twin mattresses. We all had these twin beds made out of 2x4s.
Silly Pasha Pia.
They were, they did not have the like button for heat or, vibrate, but
the setup. No, that's true. I mean, that was great. I mean, those are the best stories you hear when you hear.
That's over and over and over again. That stuff like that all the time. People are like, what will it take to get you to move mine up? What do you got? I'm game, right? So yeah, but it's all a game. It was all a puzzle. I loved it. I did not enjoy being in Afghanistan, but the stuff that I did there was fun.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that, you talk about that knife, back to the knife, is it's, I got that guy, right? I feel like, and then I literally the next day I let somebody borrow it and he scratches like the heck of something. Like that's karma. I mean, someone's like, you should send it back and I'm like, I've always had that way because now it always reminds me of, I got you. And then somebody got me the next day. You're like, dang it, you scratched it. I haven't even used it yet. Yeah. I'm lucky I got that knife. No, but that's a great. So what years were Afghanistan? Was what year then?
Afghanistan was 2009. I was there January of 2009 through whatever 181 days is, just after around July 4th.
Where in Afghanistan exactly?
Fenty, Fenty, Jalalabad.
Okay.
I don't know what they call it. It changes names with every time somebody else comes in, and they do all that. But up northeast, we were 20 clicks from the Khyber Pass or 30 clicks from the Khyber Pass. So it was pretty cool.
So, you had the fun stuff of working there, doing contracting and as your wife said, bluffing everyone.
Playing the game.
Yeah, playing the game. Playing the game. What was the hard part about being deployed? Any challenges, like personal note, family that's going on at that time?
I mean, so we had moved to Ohio and got to where we lived. We bought a 10-acre farm, a 1920 farmhouse. It was not in great shape. The sellers didn't show up at closing because they just walked away. So it wasn't the most glamorous place in the world. That was the end of June of 2008. I deployed in January 2009. So it wasn't there a lot. So going into the winter in the new farmhouse, oil heat, probably not the most comfortable situation, especially for my wife, to be there. But her dad came up and helped her out a couple times. And then that was the best. So that was the hard part with the family. When we were in there, I was the deputy chief, the only one that knew, because the chief was an Army guy who went to a contracting class. He was sort of knowledgeable though, but he knew enough not to get in the way. Right. But he was a little taller than I was, probably about your height. And he looked like he was a skeleton because he wouldn't eat. because he was under so much stress, because his family, when he left from, where was he at? What's in El Paso? One of those Army bases, like way down in Texas is where he was at. Well, he left. And when he left, his wife said, I'm moving with our daughter to California. Goodbye. Like that was the last conversation he had with her before he left. Right. So he had been in Afghanistan for 6 months when I got there, night eating, 6'3", probably weighed 40 pounds less than I did. Like he was like a thin rail. And I kept telling him, dude, take some time off. I'm here. I've got it under control. I know everything that's going on. I've been here for a few months now. Go see your daughter when she's on spring break. Take your time that you're allowed and go and be with her. Right. And he was like, well, maybe, blah, sort of. Well, it got to the point that I came into work one morning and I had a routine. Our bee hut that we were in was about 40 yards to the chow hall. And I would walk through the chow hall and get, the nice styrofoam container of breakfast and then walk out the other door 40 yards to our office. And I was almost always the first or second one there, like 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'm eating and I'm watching TV. We had AFN, catching up on email, going through our lists, stacking that. And I hear our phone ringing around the corner in his office. And it rang once and I just ignored it. And then a couple months later, it starts ringing again. And there's no answering machine. It just rings and rings and rings. I was like, oh my God, whatever. So I go around the corner, I pick it up and I say, hey, it's Captain Shipe. And on the other end, this guy's just like going off. So here's what's going to happen. And we'll get a replacement as soon as possible. What you need to do is hold the fort down. And I'm like, excuse me. And it was the colonel from Kabul, who's the commander of everybody. And I was like, sir, this is contracting a job. And he goes, yeah, I know Kevin. You're Captain Shipe, you're Kevin, right? And I was like, yes, sir. And he goes, good. So for the next few days, I need you to hold down the fort and I'll have a replacement. And I was like, sir, a replacement for what? And he goes, you don't know what's going on. I was like, apparently not. And he goes, oh, so the major checked himself into the hospital at 1 o'clock in the morning for battle stress. I was like, oh, starting to make sense what you were saying now. So he is in a room. And from that point on, we had to have somebody there to monitor him. Because the night before, when I came in at midnight, the bee hut with the 2x4 door on the hinges, when I opened the door, he had a gun on his lap.
Yeah, how much longer did they keep him?
2 days. And then they shipped him to Germany. And they took one of my guys, because at first they were like, he's an officer. You're going to have to take him to Germany. I was like, that's not going to work. And he's like, what? I was like, then we have a guy who just put on first lieutenant. So he'd been in 2 years and a month. And then a bunch of enlisted folks who haven't really interacted with anybody, going to any of the calls. Cause I was his backup. I was going to those meetings. I knew all the people. I was like, if you pull me out of that, nobody's going to know anybody here. And it's really going to stress out the other people. So I had one of my guys as a master sergeant who had been a first sergeant. And he's like, I'll do it. I'll come take him. So he hopped on the plane and made his way to Germany and sat there till he got processed in and then tried to get back, which took him about a week. Because he was not manifested anywhere. He was just like trying to fill in a plane, which is funny because I got stuck in Manas coming down. And once you miss your manifest, you're just fill in after that. So people were coming in and leaving. And I was like, I've been here 4 days now and I can't get on a plane because I don't have a reservation. Like it's crazy. But so yeah, when I hung up the phone and the master sergeant walked in right away, I was like, hey, you need to come with me. Here's what's going on. He goes, oh. And our B hut was split. It was the major, myself, and the lieutenant on one side, and all the enlisted on the other side. And there was a wall, right? So there was, not all the enlisted, 5 of the enlisted, and then 3 of us officers, and somebody else was somewhere else, another B hut. And So he's like, oh, so we go see him and he's there. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't take it anymore. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. He goes, I need you to do me a favor though. My weapon is under the edge of my bed, chambered and ready to go. So don't kick it because it might shoot somebody through the wall. Right. So we had to go back, and the Air Force guy had to unload his 9mm very gingerly and take the clip out and take the round out of the chamber and pack his stuff for him to go. He was allowed, one bag, and then we had to inventory and box everything else up and ship it like the next week. So that was a pretty stressful.
So looking back on that, like, what do you, I mean, we like to talk about mental health on here and those struggles. Like, this is one of those things, like, you're forward deployed, you're recognizing this guy's having family problems, and a lot of, like, what do you think the military could have done, looking back on that, to help ease this whole situation? I mean, you have, having a captain tell a major you should, go on leave doesn't really always jive with how that goes. Like, is there anything that when you look back on that, you wish your command had done better, or that,
yeah. And so that's
people around them could have done better.
And that's the weird part is he was Army, right? And I was Air Force, and I had not been around tons of Army. I'd been around some civil affairs team in Africa and some other folks, but like, this time on this base, it was very small, 2,000 people. There was like 11 or 15 Air Force people, a couple Marines, Special Forces, and everybody else was Army, right? So I didn't know all the culture, right? I didn't know like a captain shouldn't be even talking to a major like that. I was just like, dude, you need like, and he's like, yeah, I know. But, and then on the flip side, I think he felt like he was going to let everybody at the base down if he left. Right. And this is 2009. Mm-hmm. So I would hope in the 15 years since then, a lot has changed, but it was not a thing to be like, yeah, I need to.
No, 100%. Yeah. I think, right? I mean, I hindsight 2020, I know what you're saying like that, but how you look at it is, it's very, the culture, the military doesn't do well when, you have somebody that's subordinate to you in rank that, tells you what you should be doing.
And he had
but you really need to do that. Like, that's the problem, is it should be, it's a team thing. It's it doesn't matter if they outrank you. If you see someone struggling, it should be a culture where you're like, hey, this isn't, you're not doing pretty well. But like back then, saying I'm sure if you look back, I'm sure his career didn't, I don't know where it went after that, but at that time, checking yourself out and stuff like that, that wasn't really a career enhancer, if
definitely
a way of putting it,
definitely not. But this guy, I mean, he had been around for a while. I mean, he was in Iraq a couple of tours before he came to Afghanistan, so I know how that stress probably went on his family or whatever. But he had the leave that all he had to do was say, I want to go on leave, and the authorization was there. Yeah. And I was trying to get him to go because I could see the end of my time coming, and I knew who was replacing me. Yeah. And so now would be the perfect line it up, and he just could not do it. I don't know if he was, I don't know.
I mean, a lot of it's like, if you're really looking at it, probably doesn't want to face what the reality of, it's easy to be
get back. And
it's easier to be back. Yeah. You're back to an empty home. Like, all that stuff becomes, when if you're deployed or somewhere else, it's not a reality until it is a reality, if that makes sense. So that's gonna be hard, but that stressor. And, you think that, like, you're right. It's been many years. You think that by now, 14 years later, that there's a different process to identify that, because, and honestly, in the chain of command, there should be someone that probably send it back. That doesn't always, it shouldn't be an individual option. It's like, hey, you need to go back and get your stuff squared away.
And I'm not the type of guy, I never have been, to then go to someone out, the battalion commander, and say, hey, this guy, he is scary, right? He's really hurting. Like, that's not at the time, I didn't feel that was my place, because back then I knew what that would sort of ramification, because then he's going to get called in to talk to, and then he's going to come back and say, hey, what'd you tell him? Why'd you tell? That's personal. Right. So, like,
but I think that was a culture, right? That was, because you knew, if you knew that the person was going to, let me ask you, say that you said that's not you as a person, but if you knew that guy was going to be taken care of, there was no ramifications for you or him doing it, would you want that done?
Oh,
I think
yeah.
the answer is yes.
Definitely.
And most people can do that. But that's what I hope has changed when you see that when there is a problem. Like a lot of the times when you did see somebody struggling, you couldn't really report it because you really, in some cases, were ruining someone's career.
Right.
Or potentially doing that, you know what I
And
mean? Or causing a problem between you and that person because now it's somebody else's business, you know? You've made it someone else's business.
Right. And I'm the Air Force guy.
Yeah.
Right. But there were other Army folks that he was really close with on the base, and none of them did anything either. Not that it makes it right or wrong or indifferent, but something had to change.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I hope it has. I mean, that's what I think is, you know, one of the things I think that's happened that we've watched that's, you know, people wonder why, you know, so many of us are taking our lives and aren't, you know, getting the advice, because a lot of it was really a sign of a weakness. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, I tell anybody, like, go live halfway across the world, have the stressors of your job, like, you know, the most stress you've ever been. On top of that, throw in family problems and see how well you do, and just tell you to suck it up, because that used to be what it is. I mean, that used to be, it's pretty sad.
At that time, again, for younger people that don't know that, at that time there was no Facebook Messenger, no, you know, no video chat like now. I mean, who knows where in the world this is going? But from that base at that time, nobody had video out. You could get a phone call with, you know, the traditional 30-second lag in between send and receive, but and it wasn't bad, but it was really hard to communicate a lot of times back home, right? And he just couldn't do it. And you know, I've heard you know, talk about all these things that, you know, the SAW and all of that, all these options out there after the fact, at the end. Why aren't any of those during?
I mean, I think, you know, how, it's true. I mean, that's one of the things why, you know, I started wanting to talk to veterans at this level, and at these topics, because, you know, we all were responsible for that, that culture, right? Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've, you know, ridiculed someone as an, I mean, I don't want to say it that way, but I mean, I guess I can, to be honest with it.
Suck it up. And
like, suck it up. What's your problem? You don't know this. Like, and that's,
you think you have it bad, check out that guy.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's the culture we have. I mean, now today, I mean, I think now I'm, you know, I'm optimistic that things are changed. They have to change if they don't. But one of the major things to put out here to anybody is, like, not just, you know, the culture. I can't control, you know, you can't control what the Army is doing every day or what they're doing, but you definitely, as an individual, can control what you're doing. If you are struggling, or if you know someone that is in crisis, please contact the Veterans Crisis Hotline. There's people there that are waiting to listen. You can contact them at 988, or you can dial 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or you can now text 838-255, or you can chat online at veteranscrisisline.net/chat. The big thing is, if you're struggling, your life and your mental health is more important than your job.
Right.
And if you're in an organization where that's not the case, where that does cost your job, I guarantee you that everybody around you, your friends, would much rather you know, have a different career and still be around. So I think definitely things have changed. That culture, I always look back at a lot of it, and some of the things I said, you know, to people. Like, I remember one time one of my soldiers come up to me and wanting to know when we were going to leave, because some things changed and all that kind of stuff. And I just ridiculed this guy and saying, listen, everything you own's in a box. Like, you know, your car is in a fencing area. Like, I got 2 fucking kids and a wife. You don't have anything. Who, you know, don't tell me about you wanting to get home. And probably the worst thing I could have said to that paratrooper, like, that just wasn't, but that was the culture, right? I mean, and you know what, the sad things, I felt the same way. I mean, a lot of things, the uncertainty, all these things, there's so many people are feeling the same exact way. A lot of these things have happened. And that's the thing in that culture, you know, this is, you know, I was over in, 03, 04, 03 timeframe. You were there, 2009. But you know, I'm hearing from other guests we've had that it is getting better. It's getting to be where it's not a stigma, right? And that's what we really got to break, is that it's, you know, everybody can have a bad day, everybody can have a bad month, but that doesn't mean that you can't be a good soldier or airman later on after you get through the crisis.
Right. And why it can't be a little more, I know that there's a time and a place, right? And things have to get done and people have to go do some of this stuff, but you know, there's got to be a way to say, I need a break.
No, I mean, yeah.
And it's weird because I learned that as a tech school instructor, funny enough, that we counseled a lot of people. So I got really good at counseling people. But I saw then that you have people that just did basic training and then get a little bit of freedom in tech school and just go crazy. But I saw then that everybody has different points, right? And I'm pretty convinced that everybody has from day one until day X their timeline, right? Some of them, it's like 7 weeks because they got the tech school and like, I can't do this anymore. I literally talked to 10 or 15 students of mine and they're like, I need to get out now. You know, I stayed in for 22 years, but at the end of tech school, when I was at tech school, there was, I think 8 of us. I don't know, Shannon, you might remember how many people there was other than you, me, and Tegmeyer. We obviously remember him. But I was the one that they were like, you're not going to last 4 years. You'll be the first one out. I was the only one after 8 years still in. So, you know, it changes, right? Yeah. So it's always changing, but there's a time for everybody and everybody has that limit. And the one thing that the military was horrible about is recognizing what that is.
Yeah.
And I would be curious to know if it's at all tied to the makeup of the military. Because when I went in 1991 and went to my first duty station, there was 134 of us, give or take, doing that job. And there were 3 females that I remember. And now there's probably way more. And I'm wondering if that changes any of that thought process at all. Just because it's less of the boys club mentality, the frat mentality. You can't show the weakness ever kind of thing, to where now there's going to be more of, let's be honest, my wife's my voice of reason a lot of times.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting to always talk about what is the cause. I think that if I'm looking at it, you know, from how I stepped into this a couple of years ago and trying to track what's going on with veteran suicide and warriors, you know, suicide is the number one thing is, you know, I don't know if it's all changed, because it had to change, because you're just watching astronomical numbers of us, you know, it's not working, whatever that culture environment, it just wasn't working for a while, and it's still not working. It's not perfect how it is either. I'm sure if you talk to people, there's still some issues with it, but it just, you know, when I went in there, I just felt like it was, I don't know if it was a boys club or like, but it was just like, there's just a culture, like an Army officer doesn't complain about things. Like you just don't. If you do, then you're just not going to be effective. I mean, people are going to ridicule you or whatever. Like you just, it was the suck it up, you know, drive on, suck it up mentality. But, and a lot of the times is, you know, as I look back at it, is, you know, my own personal journey is, there was so many times that I was not doing well. Right. But I could never talk about it. I mean, I could have, I was afraid to, because of, I didn't want to come off as looking weak. I wanted to look good. I wanted to feel important. I wanted to, you know, look better than everybody else. But the part that bothers me the most about that time is I wasn't receptive of it at all either. So I don't really fault the system that much, because that's just the way it was.
It was. It was what it was then. And now you can only hope it's better. But, you know, I can tell everybody out there, I retired and I didn't ever work for the government again. Partly because I lucked into a pretty nice job, but other part because I was like, I didn't need to be a part of that system anymore. Yeah.
And I think Shannon put something up there, which is true. He said mental health awareness has become more prevalent in our culture today, given more attention in the last 10 years for a good reason. Yeah. I mean, you know, some things do have to get thrust out there. You know, it's unfortunate so many people have lost their life, but it's one of those things that really has got pushed to the forefront, and it needs to continue to be there until, you know, we're not winning that number anymore. And a lot of it is that culture. I mean, like, everybody always looks at you in a different way in the military. I mean, like, but I think what it goes back to, like you said before, is the, you know, some time that I've gotten a little bit older, and all joking aside, is really understanding like what my level of my breaking point was, a different breaking point than somebody else's. And it's really never the same. There's a lot of it that try to tell you that this is everybody's breaking point, but that really isn't. Somebody else's breaking point, their worst day may not be your worst day, and you really got to understand, and that's a really hard thing to look at. I mean, and I think I've gotten a lot better in looking at that philosophy when I look at things. But, you know, I wish I'd known this wisdom a little bit earlier in life, like when I was dealing with my kids, and then also back when I was, you know, leading in the military, that I did look at that, because it was always like, man, if I'm not having a problem with it, and I'm fine and you don't, then you're, for lack of better terms, like you're a pussy, or like you're not hacking it, and you judge people on that. And I look back, I'm like, Jesus, what a completely asinine way to look at it. But that's the way it was, right? I mean, to some people, like leaving to go to NTC for 4 weeks was like the biggest, and it was like a travesty for them. They're leaving their family, like leaving their wife. I'd be like, I'm glad to get away from my wife for a little bit. I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to do that.
I was never that way
different.
ever. I never wanted to leave my wife ever.
I was like, wow, he's making me look bad on that.
She's still on. I have to say things like that, right?
I never wanted to leave, especially when I went to Aviano for those 3 months. I didn't want to leave you. The whole time I was eating gelato and biking, I was thinking about you the whole entire time.
Yes, she knows because she had gelato from that stand. So I mean, it was there have been some rough times there, right? But yeah, it's everybody's point is different. I didn't, again, because the way I am in my personality, I'm always about making the game, right? Having fun with it. The best going away thing I ever got was a wooden spoon. When I left Afghanistan, they shipped it to me because I left, I came back to my computer and I had a note on my computer that said, take the flight to Kabul tomorrow at 6 a.m. And it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was like, what? So I had to go pack, get ready. And I was out of there really fast. But they sent me a spoon because I always stirred the pot, because I didn't care. Like, what's that Army guy going to do to me? He's not going to call my commander. Right. So, okay, let's have fun with this. But
I mean, inter service stuff is always,
it's fun. Right. And we did that all the time. There would be people coming in and go, oh, you're the Air Force guy. Right. And this guy was berating one of my tech sergeants, and he left, and my tech sergeant's like, oh, this guy. I was like, don't let him do that to you. And he's like, what? It's like, you can go back at him, right? He's getting personal with you because you're allowing it. So you have to put that wall up and stop the bully, right? Like, do it. And he goes, I don't know how. And I was like, great, here we go. Next time he comes in and he's braiding, you just say, look, just stop, right? We know what we're doing. We were trained for this job. You don't know anything about it. We're smarter than you. And the reason you have that acronym on your shirt is because you couldn't get into the Air Force.
Oh, getting personal. Look at you guys.
And he's like, wow. I was like, he'll never touch you again. And so he goes, yeah, but what's the acronym? And I was like, Army. I was like, they always write it in all caps. It's all caps on their shirt, right? It's Army. And he goes, yeah. I was like, that's Air Force rejected me yesterday. I'm telling you what. I
don't think I've ever heard that one.
He said that to this guy the next time he came in. Not exactly the same way, but he said, Air Force rejected me yesterday to this guy. This guy turned around and walked out and never came back into our office. He made somebody else come over.
I thought I heard every acronym. I've never heard that one. That's
an easy one. I mean,
I
don't
know if I believe with that one, but I mean, I'll tell you a good Air Force story. So I was in Korea, and we were assigned to some warfighter thing, and we had an Air Force captain that was there with me, and we had a major who had just left Bragg. The Air Force guy was a C-141 navigator. And then I was getting ready to go to Bragg. And so the whole 10 days, all he loved to talk about was how he loved fucking with paratroopers when they're in the back and all this kind of stuff. So it just was nonstop. It was just to the point of this major was like, dude, stop. Do you realize that you probably, and he's like, I'm telling you, I'm giving you direct order. I don't want to hear any more about it, blah, blah, blah. So, we leave that, I don't know where, I forget where he was assigned in Korea, we leave the warfighter exercise. I, go about my business and my tour. I'm at the time at division headquarters. He's like, and I walk by and I see this guy in a flight suit, and I'm like, holy cow, it looks totally that guy looks familiar. And I can't remember his name now, but I call his name. He turns around, and when he turns around, he's got an 82nd patch on. And I'm like, and when he sees me, I was like, oh, and he just goes, oh my God. I'm like, what happened? He's like, this is blah, blah, blah. And they tell us because they were phasing out 141. So, right. So he had to take this assignment, I think, to wait for the C-130, whatever was going on. And he's just like, and I just look at him and he goes, I got to go to airborne school in 10 days. I was like, Oh, yes, you do. And so
go.
when he came back, it was because he was in the headquarters. I remember he came back, he was like, I regret everything I ever said about, the Army. But I mean, but that's the interrival stuff is funny. But when you see, that was like the first time I'd ever, or the last time I ever saw an Air Force guy getting the shaft a little bit about their coming back. Because realistically, when you guys make fun of us, a lot of it's true. You do have better bases.
I mean,
better living conditions.
Generally, better living. I mean,
I don't know if you're smarter, but I mean, some of you are smarter.
I mean,
but
it is what it is, right? And it's always that way, no matter where you're at. I mean, I was with Marines, and we joshed each other.
We're all definitely smarter than Marines. Let's be that. Like everyone's smarter than Marines.
Yeah, because
let's just be realistic. Sorry, Joe.
They're stronger maybe because they work out all the time. But yeah, so it was that way with the Marines. It was that way with the Navy. That way with the Army. We're all just
that is the fun part
there.
Of it,
but the funny part is if you're ever somewhere with a mixed group that have been picking on each other, and some random person joins in, everybody teams up on that person and shuts it down.
But I do have to say, of the branches, if they're all together, to be honest with you, I'm picking on the Air Force the most.
And you have to be ready for that, right?
Yeah, the Navy. I mean, the Navy it's a close second, but just the Air Force, just because it's like, and it's all because I'm mad at you because of the things I don't have. Like, so like if you've ever been to Bragg and then you had Pope, or I'm sorry, it's Bragg, Fort Bragg.
It's not. Didn't they change?
No, I'm not saying what it is anymore. I mean, but I refuse to call it that some places. But it's Camp Liberty.
Yes, there we go.
Or Fort Liberty. Fort Liberty. But I don't even like saying that. It feels so weird. But like if you would literally drive across into Pope, you'd see like it's like automatically. It's like the whole world changed. Like grass. It's like. So there's a party you're like,
yeah,
maybe I made a bad decision. But then you're there maybe like an hour and you're like, I definitely made the right decision. I'm going back to Bragg. No,
it's fun. It is what it is, right? And like I said, I joined the Air Force because I was like, I don't want to be like,
never.
I mean, when I was going to the recruit or whatever, I was equating Army and Marines with I have a gun and they're going to shoot at me and they're going to want me to shoot back, which I can shoot, but I don't want to be shot at. And then Navy with I'm on a boat in the middle of water somewhere. So I was like, Air Force is definitely the way to go. So, but we do have our pluses. There's minuses too, but there's more pluses.
So a couple more questions. We went over 2 hours, but we still got some good time to talk about a couple more questions. One crazy question I just got to know. I asked you for your awards and decorations. You said in 2008 you won the pink Care Bear.
Yes.
So this is again where I think it gets so easy, or you're awarded, or you won your decorations with a pink Care Bear. This is why it gets so easy to make fun of the Air Force people. Well, I don't even need the story, but I just got to throw out the pink Care Bear.
Yeah, but you need the story because the story will tell you why I put that, and I didn't put any the stuff on there on my, as my wife calls it, my rack. Is check out his rack. So, so in Alaska is where that was from. We were PCSing. I was in charge of a team of 7 or 8 people. A couple of guys have been academy grads, a couple enlisted folks that are still in doing contracting, and some that are probably definitely out. I don't know where they're at. And we did all the commodity buys for Elmendorf Air Force Base. And they were really young. Like the oldest guy was 24, right? The 2 academy guys were like 24 and 1. So all very, very young. And we're going into the fiscal year. So the beginning of September, and their whole thing, of course, they're young guys. Their whole thing was, can we have Sunday mornings off? Because in September, basically nobody took leave and everybody worked every day to get all the stuff bought, right? Because you have to spend every dime, or next year you might not get every dime. Is the
great idea.
Yeah. Awesome how that works, right? They ought to reward them and say, if you save $1,000, we'll give you $500 extra next year. And they would probably save a lot of money. But I was like, all right, let me see what I can do. So I go into my boss and I was like, hey, so, my team's pretty young. They want Sunday mornings off. So I put up this list and said, we had like, I don't know how many, let's just say 100. We had 100 requests. I was like, if I have that down to 75 by the first weekend, can they have Sunday off? And she's like, yeah, if you get it 75 by the first weekend, not a problem. And if we go to 50 the next weekend, And then 25 the next weekend, they don't have to work Sundays. She's like, yeah, sure, whatever. Do whatever it takes. So they would work till midnight on whatever night, come back in at 7 the next day, just so that they could be done Saturday, usually in the mid-afternoon, so that they could go to the bar and party and do whatever and not have to work on Sunday. And it worked. Like, we got all this stuff done. And we were Air Force Flight of the Year that year, right? So I had to go away. I was like, whatever, do whatever, wherever. I had the official going away. And then I had this going away that they put together at Chuck E. Cheese. Way more fun, right, than the official. Here it is. There's a nice piece of paper. Have fun, blah, blah, blah. And we were at Chuck E. Cheese. Well, they were playing games and they pulled all of their tickets together. And the biggest thing that they could get was literally a stuffed Care Bear that was like this big, that was pink. And
that was your gift. And that probably cost like what?
$400. $400 in quarters playing skee ball for a ticket at a time. I don't know.
That's like it's again with contract. This right? See how it has a theme with the 500.
Right.
That's literally probably a $499, less than that Care Bear.
Yeah.
That really costs the Air Force.
Right. Well, it costs
the military $400.
Cost those individuals, because everybody, all of them were putting money out of their pocket for it. And they gave that to me like right there, like, here, take this. So we drove from Alaska to Ohio and went like down through California and across into Grand Canyon, and saw a lot of states that we hadn't seen before out in the Southwest. And we would take pictures with this Care Bear. We have a picture of it on a cable car in San Francisco.
That's cool.
And just wherever we were going for a day, it would be in a backpack, and I'd pull it out and set it somewhere and take a picture. So that was the pink Care Bear, and it was just cool.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, you just made me feel bad about making fun of the pink Care Bear now.
That's fine. I tried.
Way to go. Gosh, he turned it on me again. No,
it's the Air Force is smarter again and can work that out.
He got me again. Dang it, he got me again. Last question. What was the hardest part about getting out of the military?
Leaving that environment. Just, no matter where it was, the teamwork, the help each other out, the pick each other up kind of thing, that doesn't happen a ton outside of that.
Yeah. Like the teamwork, the common goal.
And I mean, there is props for not having to pick out what you're going to wear every day. I mean, there's this BDU top or this one that hasn't been washed for 3 extra days. Which one are you going to go with? Brown t-shirt or brown t-shirt,
Yeah, but you can get pretty picky though with BDUs. Like, I mean, some uniforms, there's some that's fit a little bit better. Like they're worn in the right way.
You had the heavier ones, the lighter ones.
Like these are.
But but still, it was all the same. Nobody would pay attention to.
That's very true.
But yeah, those are probably the two.
So anything else you want to add in there that think we missed?
Nah, I mean, we could probably sit here for 15 more hours going through stories.
I mean, we'll chat more when we get off the camera. It's always fun.
So one other thing for you that, because I have watched a lot of these episodes, you have to have more ladies on. Your best. I'm telling you right now, the best podcasts are the ones you did with the ladies, because they give that other side.
Yeah, the fun thing is like I was trying to get your wife was trying to get me to get the phone cover on your phone. My wife always said that's the one thing my wife always says too, is get more. But and if anybody's listening, it's a hard thing. It's not like we're trying. Right. I think we do have a couple ladies finishing out the rest of the year though. We have 2 coming in. We have I think a lady in October, and then another lady right before we ended December. So it is open to everyone. It's open to any rank, but it's a different perspective. I mean, it's always a different.
And it's some of those things you ask, like, what about this or that? Like, I don't know, right? Like, I'm sure my wife could tell you horror stories about the time that I was in Qatar, which was the summer my son learned how to drive.
Yeah. And
so in Ohio, that all those hours you had to build, I left the weekend before he got his permit, and I came back the Friday before the Tuesday, because it was a holiday, that he went and got his driver's license. So I missed that, but she would probably tell you horror stories about it.
Yeah. One of the things I do want to do eventually is like, you're getting going, is like, you always have ideas, but we do want to have like like a dependent panel. But a lot of it is like people want to talk about it. That's a big thing, is it's getting more and more like a lot of people, there's nothing, it's not an off limit thing. It is a good perspective. We've had a couple like,
we had,
joint, the joint time it does, joint military members and all the kind of things. We've had Meg, who was
knocked it out of the park. Probably your best episode.
Yeah, they do great episodes. I mean, it's everyone adds a different, but it is always different perspective. We're always looking at, that's one thing, to get the different look at it, because it's like we talked about during this podcast, many other ones. It's like everybody has a different story. Everybody handle it differently, and it's always interesting because it is a big part of it that a lot of people. I try to hope we all talk about it enough, is the support that the wives gave us. And there's definitely a different perspective on it. Yeah, when you talk to them, it's like, because I'm still like, I love Korea, like I love the food, like it was like I had a good time, but I don't want to bring that up because my wife was pregnant with our first kid, and then I went back there again without her there. So it's like, you got to be very careful. But like you want to be able to tell the truth, but the perspective is what they're going through. Because a lot of the times it's like, for me, I used to not want to hear it because I was afraid that I would hear something that was going to be like, make me feel even worse than I felt about it. But a lot of it is like some good, strong advice. And like, you realize it wasn't as bad as we thought it was. I mean, in some cases it is, but it is a different perspective. So,
and it's gotta be a worry. I mean, because I was on the other side, I don't really know, but I did call my mom from Afghanistan and opened a back door when they were doing night firing. She didn't think that was as funny as I did, but those stressors on the other side, you're just like, they don't know, right? They don't get a feel for what it is, and you don't really necessarily want them to know, but that would, that other side tells a different story.
No, definitely. Yeah. We'll definitely keep that. We got a couple coming in. We'll keep pushing it. It's a lot of it is just getting the word out there. And, if you think there's anybody that's listening, if you're interested, you know how to get a hold of us. If there's someone you want us to harass to get on here, we're pretty good at doing that as well too. We do too, but I do want to thank you coming in. It's a pleasure to meet you. I was excited to meet you. It's always
good to have the Air Force blue in the background. I know.
I mean, other than me putting that up last night, I mean, I did it like right before I went to bed. I had to make sure I did it like I didn't.
So you could have it in your dreams. I know.
We'll pull it down when you leave. I got to look at. Actually, I just got to look at who's coming in next. So it used to bother me, but it really doesn't. It's great to have a different perspective in, and it's exciting for me to have people I've never met, so it's pretty cool to come in here and meet you and hear the stories firsthand. And I really appreciate you coming. It wasn't just a 5-minute drive, but thank you for coming.
It was a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you for your service. 23 or 22?
22.
22.
22.
Good number.
Yeah.
Good number. Thank you for your service, your sacrifice, all your haggling, everything you did. I'm sure all the things you've. Thank you. So we got it. Well, look, we're almost ready to get out, but we have things. So this is your sister-in-law. So I learned so much about my brother-in-law from this Facebook Live. Thanks for sharing, Kevin. And thank you both for your years of service. Awesome.
Riley said he didn't think he's that bad of a driver. I don't know. My wife may beg to differ, but
hopefully Riley flies planes better than he drives. How about put it that?
That's there is.
You're telling me it's pretty easy, just a bunch of pushing buttons. Riley, we got to talk about it. Your dad's like just saying all he does is take off, push a button.
My daughter would say that she hopes the same thing because she knows some of the history. But
there's less to hit up there, right?
Yeah,
that's
right. It's the safest way to travel.
I don't know. Yeah. So, but I do want to thank you again, honestly, for coming in. Thanks for you're always welcome to come back if you're in the area. And again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your being candid and telling your story, and also for your service. So
thank you.
Before we close, we'll get into the not so great part of each podcast tonight. We're going to honor another service member who unfortunately took their life. Tonight, we're going to honor U.S. Army Sergeant Jacob D. Prazer, 26 years old. Jacob was born on June 15th, 1987 in Elrye, Ohio. Jacob took his life on September 10th, 2013 in Lorraine, Ohio. Jacob graduated from Mountain Point High School in Phoenix, Arizona, where he played baseball on the high school baseball team. After graduating from high school, Jacob enlisted in the Arizona Army National Guard. During his time in the Army National Guard, Jacob deployed multiple times to Afghanistan, where he earned the Afghanistan Campaign Medal. Jacob's awards and decorations include the Army Commendation Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, and the Army Service Ribbon. The Overseas Service Ribbon, the Armed Forces Reserve Medal, and the NATO Service Medal. Jacob was extremely proud to be serving his country and of being a soldier. He was an active member at the Gduth Denali Israel Synagogue in Lorain, Ohio at the time of his death. Jacob is survived by his wife, Adriana, son, Austin, mother, Teresa, stepfather, Jerome, father, Kenneth, stepmother, Cynthia, sisters, Jennifer and Natasha, brother, Darian, grandfather, Raymond, and numerous other relatives and friends. And again, if you or someone you know is in crisis and might be considering suicide, please contact the Veterans Crisis Hotline at 988 or dial 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or you can text 838-255 or chat online at veteranscrisisline.net/chat. Couple admin things as we go from this. If you haven't seen it, Kevin's not a drinker, so this is the second time in a row, but we've had our private barrel pick is up here. Hopefully it's sending some subliminal messages to everyone. You definitely want to, we still have some bottles left of this. You don't want to miss out. We talked about Knob Creek a lot. This is the first Knob Creek rye we've done. This thing is 9 years old, 115 proof. Mash bill is 55% rye, 35% corn, 10% malted barley. And as far as like the barrel picks for rye, this is one of the older ones that have been out in a long time. We definitely have some bottles available. If you're in the area here, you can pick it up. If not, we can ship it to you. But I want to put that out there. Hopefully send some messages to everybody on that. And as Kevin had pulled it up, we'll pull up our schedule. He can upcoming guests. So we're going to be joined. Look at that. An Army guy coming next week. Yes. And then look at the run I got. Look at the run I got. I got 2 Air Force guys in a row. Oh,
nice. No. We'll have to spend some time in September.
We have Suzette and Melissa coming. So there's your wish.
There you go.
And she's in the Air Force too.
And a lady from the Air Force, probably one of your better.
It's going to be the best episode ever. I know. Right before Christmas time frame. So again, I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure was mine. So everyone, we will see everyone in a couple weeks. I'll end it with another quote. Hopefully finding contracting quotes it's tough. A little bit difficult. So I think I found another good one here. This is from the Navy. Rear Admiral Henry E. Clace, I probably pronounced it wrong. It says, logistics is the bridge between the economy of the nation and the tactical operations of its combat forces. Obviously, then the logistics system must be in harmony both with the economic system of the nation and with the tactical concepts and environment of the combat forces.
It's a Navy guy.
It's tough as a Navy guy, but thank you for everybody that tuned in. We will see everyone in a couple weeks and have a great night.